And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Intentional roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time. Of course, it's Monday morning. Hope everyone had a good weekend. Hopefully, it was a weekend to remember. A lot of content going on in New York City, NYPD. The New York City streets are out of control. We're going to jump into that. We're going to talk about that. But before we do that, this episode is sponsored by The Key. So keep you advised that The Key is offering this week the promotional, again, sponsored by Finance Unfiltered. Use that code Finance Unfiltered $6.99. Get yourself the course for The Key for promotion. Jump into it now. It's the way to go. The Key's got the keys to success. All right, so jump in for The Key. Finance Unfiltered $6.99 this week. You have another opportunity to get that discount and make that investment into your future. So, with that being said, good morning, John. Good morning, Marlon. John.
Yeah. No, so like Eric said, morning, everybody. Episode's brought to you by The Key. Classes are going to start for the sergeant course. They're going to start May 2nd. You got 10 classes, 7 locations. So everything's covered. Suffolk, Nassau, Queens, Staten Island, Rockland, Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan. You got no excuses. You could attend every class if you have time. You could watch all of the class multiple times because you don't even have to attend. They have it on the they're gonna give you a video thing on the app as well as they're doing 2 videos each lesson. So there's gonna be 2 separate lessons for each. One's going to be brought to you by George Misfud. The other one's going to be by Ralph Salento. So if you prefer one, I say always do more. Always study more. Watch both of them. I mean, instead of listening to a podcast, when it's time to hunker down and study, when it's time to, don't play those Xbox games or whatever you do that waste your time. Watch some stupid TV show. Study. Watch this instead. Instead of watching TV, watch The Key. So like I said, you're going to get 2 lessons. Current list number. So if you're over 2,700, right? George spoke about it on here. If you're over list 2,700, you're actually on the list for sergeant. The average that they take per promotion, right? The average sergeants that get promoted is about 60. So you got the list is going to expire in May of 27. So you got about 14 months left. That means that there's only about another 840 names that are going to go, meaning you have to study. You have to take this class again because you're not going to be a sergeant. That's what that means. If you have 3 years on the job, you should be studying immediately. Can't get promoted till you have 5? Great. That's a good problem to have, right? So there's not an excuse for anyone to not be studying. We'll talk about it again. But there is absolutely zero excuse on why anyone should not be studying in this. I mean, everything's there for you. I mean, they couldn't have made it easier for you. The Key's the NYPD's premier promotional class for a reason. You could see why. They give you way more than you need. You just have to grab it. So appreciate it. Marlon, what's up, brother? Good morning.
Yo, good morning, everyone. Good morning, chat. Yeah, this weather is something, right? Like we go from hot to now we're kind of back to cool again. Yeah. Mother Nature can't make up her mind whether she wants to head to the spring or not. But I hope everyone had a great weekend. There's a lot going on in the city, as you can see from our topic today. But like John and Eric said, you shouldn't get distracted right now. And those of you who hear that voice telling you that it's time to study and time to take that test, then you should follow through with it. Because the guy who isn't doing your level of work, right? He's taking the test and he's going to be giving you stupid orders soon. So before he gets there and he could outrank you, you should take the test. You should follow through on that voice that's telling you to take the test, and you should take it and pass it. Okay? So there'll be less morons telling you what to do.
Yeah. Hey, listen, good morning, everybody. So I told John offline before, and Marlon, I was talking, I said, Marlon, you're at the center of everything, still in New York City. New York City's out of control right now. You see meetups all over the place. It looks like Fast and the Furious on different locations throughout New York City. But, you have to say to yourself, wow, supposedly the manpower is still at 35,000. And pretty much we know at this point, it's impossible. It's impossible that cops aren't just running into these incidents. And if they are, well, they can't do anything either way because there's just no manpower. If you two cops in a patrol car, and you roll up on a beat up, and there's just cars everywhere, Fast and the Furious, and they're speeding out, they're whipping donuts, and there's just people outside, and there's two cops. What are you going to do? What are you going to do at this point? No one's coming to back you up. It's out of control. It's a mess. It's a disaster. The NYPD leadership has zero control. I say the leadership, not the cops. The cops are doing the best they can with a bad, with a bad deck that they're dealt with. It's just right now. It is insane. It's insane what's going on there. The cops have zero manpower to assist them. They're really in a predicament that they're so vulnerable. Thank God that these meetups have not gotten violent towards the cops, but that's something that could happen. So I'm worried. I'm concerned for them and the leadership, especially on the Jessica Tisch. There is zero control, out of control. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, so obviously, we're talking about, we talked about it a few weeks ago. We were talking about the races that are going on through New York City streets, all the kids that are intentionally trying to attempt to get NYPD cops to chase them. And, a part of that same culture is like, that they're all on social media. They're putting these car chases or these attempted car chases and then racing through the streets of New York City on New York City's highways, like running around like maniacs. And they're creating content. They're getting thousands and thousands of views. They're actually making money off of this. But part of that culture is also car takeovers, right? We showed you the viral one that happened in Malba, Queens. Now we're seeing it in Maspeth. It's been happening all over Jamaica, Queens, the Bronx. Obviously, Maspeth's quiet neighborhood, and that's why it's getting a lot of media attention. But this is something that's been going on for the last 4 years. I know John Shell's been all over the media pretending that, him and Kaz and Adams had it under control. And I just think that is not an accurate narrative because it's something we've been talking about forever. Obviously, Malba Queens was under him and Adams. So I don't like. What are you talking about? We're not that stupid, John. So yeah, let's. This is how the news has been reporting.
It looks like a scene out of a Fast and Furious movie, but it is in Hollywood. It's Middle Village, Queens, just last night.
Spectators watched on as nearly 100 cars commandeered the intersection of 69th Street and Elliott Avenue, along with drivers doing donuts around a ring of fire lit in the middle of the road.
Police tell us they were on the scene within a minute to break up the disorderly and downright dangerous scene. They tell us most of the cars drove off, but not before 3 people crushed the window of an NYPD cruiser.
New York City Council member Phil Wong, who represents that part of Queens, told us he is upset tonight. He spoke with Eyewitness News reporter Crystal Cranmore.
We heard screeching and screeching. It actually woke us up, and then we ran to the side window and just continuously, just like you smell like the rubber.
It was pure automotive mayhem.
They were set up, like just waiting to take their turn in and out of the gas station.
As several cars shut down the intersection at 69th Street and Elliott Avenue in Maspeth around 1:45 this morning.
And they started a fire, which I think is insane by a gas station. That's so, idiotic to do that.
The chaos did not stop there. Police say shortly after they arrived and dispersed the illegal car meetup, 3 people jumped on the hood of a marked police car and cracked the windshield. Detectives spent much of the day looking for clues to track the suspects down, stopping at homes and businesses for surveillance. Community members say they're concerned.
Somebody could have hit the shop. They could have crashed into the gas stations.
Councilman Phil Wong's office was flooded with calls. He says he's been in touch with the NYPD.
From what I heard, they ran through some plates and they are fake plates. So they came prepared. They're not occasional meetups. They are planned.
Wong says these car takeovers have targeted other parts of the community, and efforts are underway to see what structural changes can be implemented to deter them.
We're going to work with DOT to see how we put them in. We already have some speed bumps in the district, but not designed for these meetups.
Residents, in the meantime, hope for swift accountability.
This is craziness. This is where people live. This is, to me, an attack on our civility.
Track down these people, figure out where they are, tow their cars, suspend their license.
Authorities say they issued a summons to one driver who reportedly blocked a crosswalk. The chaos, fortunately, did not lead to any injuries. The investigation remains ongoing. In Maspeth, Crystal Cranmore.
So you heard it there. So, I mean, obviously, it's a big problem. It's a huge problem, and it all stems from the manpower within these patrol commands. That took place in the 104th precinct, 104th precinct, right? That evening, on paper, they said they had about 5 RMPs out, which is a lot. That means 5 sector teams. I'll say if on paper they had 5 sector teams, they probably in reality had about 3. And of those 3, there was another car meetup in the 110th precinct where they deployed resources to from the 104th to deal with it. So basically what we continuously talk about, robbing Peter to pay Paul, leaving a diminished product. We talked about Staten Island last week, where Staten Island has less cops today than it did in 1960, about 120 less cops, as a matter of fact. And the population of Staten Island has increased, over double what it was. It went from about 200,000 people to over 500,000 people. It went to a place where there was farmland to a place where now it is like Brooklyn. It's the same thing. It's house on top of house, car on top of car, heavy traffic now. And what's happening is you are falling into New York City's racial equity plan. This plan did not start on the Zohran Mamdani. This plan started on the Bill de Blasio. It was furthered on the Eric Adams, and it's continuing to go even further on the Zohran Mamdani. So if you live in a white neighborhood in Maspeth, Queens, what you could expect is higher response times, less cops. And so does that mean that the cops in the 104 precinct don't care about you? No. Does that mean that the commanding officer of the 104th precinct doesn't care about you? No. That means that the mayor of the city of New York and his police commissioner decided to not give you resources. That's what that means, because you're traditionally a safe neighborhood. You don't have those violence and shootings, so you have to deal with this. And to me, I see a lot of incompetence. I see a lot of wrong messaging. We're going to get into it. I'm pretty sure we're going to probably piss everybody off when we get into it. And when we break down, we're going to talk about what the NYPD's done, what they're doing, and what's being called for. So, yeah, craziness going on. What's up, Marlon?
Yo. Yeah. Welcome to the Finest Unfiltered, where we tell you the issues that are going to be a big problem. And then like weeks later, there's a big incident in the news cycle, which stems from that big problem that we told you is coming. And we told you before, a couple of days ago, that these street takeovers were going to become a bigger problem over the summer. We told you because LAPD's intelligence has been warning that these things are becoming a big deal. And in fact, over there, they actually increased downtown patrols because of this, right? So this was on its way. And don't think for a second that the NYPD doesn't know that this is on its way. But like we said before, we suspect they're making the calculus that, traditionally, while it's a nuisance and traditionally safe, historically, lower crime areas, if this happens in the South Bronx or those precincts that are traditionally high, it's going to be a massive, it's going to be worse. There might be shootings there as well that same evening, and it's going to be a lot more people, and it could even dovetail into a lot of the summer 2020 stuff, So I suspect that the NYPD already knows this, but because they're dealing with limited resources, limited manpower, they've made the calculation that we can, the 104 and the 110, they can take a 2 or 3% rise in crime if it means suppressing a 30% rise in crime in the South Bronx and Brownsville and East New York and the worst precincts in the city. So I think, again, the problem is that a lot of these street takeovers are happening in a lot of great neighborhoods, as we mentioned Malibu before, a couple months ago. And I think, I saw Phil's response to it, and I gotta say, that the DOT, if the DOT are going to make changes there, those changes are not going to solve the problem, and they're only going to piss off your constituents. Okay, that's not the answer. We know the answer is stop dancing around the elephant in the room.
Well, speaking of Phil Wong, he's fighting a losing battle. So even though Phil Wong is a Democrat, he's kind of moderate. He's actually pro NYPD and pro policing and anti-crime. But he's a Democrat amongst a bunch of radical nut jobs in the city council. So he's fighting a losing battle there. The NYPD right now is just completely hamstrung and handicapped. And the leadership is lying and gaslighting the public, playing this game that just continues on. If anyone thinks it's just over on Mamdani, you need to wake up. Eric Adams, the template with 4 police commissioners is exactly the same as what you see right now. And it's just, right now, it's coming to a point where it's unraveling. And we foreshadowed this on the Finest Unfiltered. For almost 4 years, I've been telling you what's happening here. It's right front in your face. And Marlon, you say it's happening, it's there. It's already there. The streets have unfolded. It's out of control. There is no control anymore. And if we talk about not just manpower, you have to also ask yourself, is how are the troops actually allocated in the NYPD right now? Because Marlon, you were in Intel. There's no doubt about it that not only are these meetups not being addressed by patrol, the manpower is lacking to actually address it head on, face on. But what is intelligence doing at this point? Is there anyone in intelligence? And if they are, what are they actually doing? Because I know intelligence, especially the FIOs, are monitoring social media. And there's no doubt about it. There's no way that a meetup of that magnitude could actually happen in New York City and nothing be scrubbed. Excuse me. Nothing be scrubbed off social media. There's no doubt about it that intelligence is definitely aware these meetups are happening. The commanding officers of these precincts, especially the 104, are definitely aware it's happening. And I think that no matter what, they just can't stop it. They don't have the manpower. Jessica Tisch is playing this game, telling you crime is down, telling you that manpower is good, telling you that the mass exodus is not affecting them, because they want to continue to tell you that there's historic lows with crime, but yet it's in front of your face. You're saying to yourself, wait a minute. You say crime's down, historic lows, but yet it's in your face and you just see what's out of control. It's a mob. It's a mob takeover, and it's right in front of people's faces. And the NYPD at this point is handicapped. They're frozen, and they can't even do anything. And when I say they're frozen, the boots on the ground are frozen. Even if there are 5 sector cars and there's hundreds of people out there, what are you going to do? Your resources are limited. And at this point, there's not an equitable distribution of cops patrolling in New York City among precincts. So if the city council is concerned about disproportionate racial profiling or being over-policed, well, then you need to speak to your NYPD leadership and ask, why are there no cops in the 123 precinct or the 104 precinct, but you see much more cops in the 75 or the 44? Now, policing should be equitable depending on the area. Even if the crime is not out of control, you still need a certain level of manpower. It's just at a point where it's not sustainable. The NYPD cannot hide anymore and mask and lie and gaslight you to your face because you see it. It's obvious and it's there. By the way, I just want to say, normally we read the coffee and donuts at the end, but shout out to AC2074 USMC Simplified. Big coffee and donuts here, $100. He says, always keep hands in your vest so you're not threatening, and always say pretty please. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's at the point where the NYPD boots on the ground are handicapped. They're frozen. You can't do anything. If you're 2 cops in a patrol car and you roll up at a mob scene, such as this Fast and Furious incident, there's nothing you can do. And if anyone expects those cops to do anything, well, you need to talk to people like Phil Wong and the rest of these city council people and say, hey, thank you for the diaphragm law. Thank you for all these laws, draconian laws that have caused the NYPD leave. Thank you to the NYPD leadership that has cared more about their own self-promotions that allowed the boots on the ground to be frozen and lie to you and tell you manpower is up to par, and yet you see it right in front of your face. John, what are your thoughts, man? It's out of control, brother.
So Phil Wong's one of the few common sense councilman in city council. He's one of the few, right? His back's against the wall. It's, Phil Wong is in the same position that the 104 CO and the cops in the 104. And the cops, really, the rank and file cops throughout the NYPD are that your back's against the wall. The issue here is there is not enough manpower in the NYPD. It's clear as day. And if there is, that means that there is a huge mismanagement coming from the upper echelon of the NYPD, that the manpower is highly mismanaged because every precinct should be fully and competently staffed. We shouldn't have precincts in Staten Island have more cops in 1960 than they do today. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not only that, it's reckless in my opinion. It's almost criminal in my opinion for the amount of money that the NYPD gets. But I'm going to say right now, the issue is not DOT. To solve this problem does not take speed bumps, does not take more speed cameras. It does not take more red light cameras. This is not going to solve anything. Why? He said it right there. Using fake plates. There's a lot of things that are happening here. And the other answer is to not have cops chasing people either. That's another thing. We'll get into all of that. But Phil Wong, at the last public safety hearing in New York City Council, he brought this exact issue up. This is an issue that has been going on for years across New York City, and it's been festering and it's been growing. And this summer, if nothing's done, it's going to explode. It's gonna be like you've never seen it, and it's already there. This is every night. Last night and the night before, after this all made headlines, they were still doing it. So, I mean, I don't know what the NYPD is waiting on. I don't know what New York City Mayor Mondani is waiting on. Are they not able to come up with a competent plan? If so, if you're not, you guys have our number. Reach out. We'll help you draw up and strategize. Obviously, we'll get into what Shell's plan was and how ineffective it actually was and why it was so dangerous. But let's hear when this is the Mondani administration now. This hearing was on 3/18/2026. Phil Wong brings this up. Let's hear what the NYPD said they were going to do about car meetups.
First thing my constituents expect from the city in the Middle Village, Maspeth, Glendale, Elmhurst, Rico Park, and Ridgewood. Residents tell me they value the NYPD. They know the officers in the 104th, 110th, and 112 precincts by name, and they appreciate the work that is being done under difficult conditions. And my questions today will focus on whether the 104th, 110, and 112 precincts are properly staffed from patrol to the detective squads, and how NYPD and the Transportation Bureau plan to sustain proactively quality of life and Vision Zero enforcements. My first question, for each of the 104th, 110, and 112 precincts, can you provide the current authorized and actual uniform head counts?
We'll get that to you after this hearing.
So Jessica Tisch had a binder in front of her this entire hearing of all of the manpower of every command in New York City, but she refused to go on record with it. We had Phyllis Cirillo of Howard Beach Community Council. She was on here. She was the president of that, and she gave you the numbers of her commands in Queens, and they were about half of what they were in 2019. They were less than 100, some of them. So she refused to go on record with that. And the reason she refused to go on record with that is because similarly here, your precincts have less people now than they did in 2019, about half, about 50% less. That's why she doesn't go on record there. Now let's get to the car meetups.
Okay, thank you. Next issue is that we have a lot of car meetups in our district in which dozens of cars meet up, where they make donuts, loud music, and they travel around from district to district. They often start at the Maspeth industrial areas and they go all over the city. I get these calls, whether it's 2 a.m. or whether it's 4 a.m. And what is being done to effectively combat these issues?
Our Chief of Department, Chief Michael Petrie, will speak to the plans for addressing car meetups.
Okay.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you. Morning.
So as tasked to the Chief of Patrol and the borough commanders across the city, not just in Patrol Borough Queens North. We have a substantial car meet plan that is reviewed daily. And before the weekend on Friday, all the information, the intelligence that we are getting is then operationalized for deployment, not just within one precinct, but across the city. We also know specific bridges that some of these car meets will then actually leave the car meet or come into a specific area, notably Queens North. Just last night, I'll give you an example, though not a car meet, but a substantial vehicular crime happened in the 109 precinct. And within 15 minutes, those individuals were driving to the Bronx. We had intelligence of what bridge they were going over. We had the intelligence of where they were going to end up. And they were apprehended and arrested on a vehicular-related crime. The same intelligence and the same deployment is done for car meets. And just one other thing, the 311 and the 911 data that we get prior to, historically, is analyzed. And again, we are deploying to locations that we've known in the past have had those types of meetups.
Thank you.
And basically what he said is, yeah, you know, we've been doing a whole lot of mumbo jumbo and not been effective at doing any of it. And so we're just going to keep doing that. And you're just going to keep dealing with the call meetups. That's what he told you. They have zero plan on how to actually effectively stop this. What do you guys think about what Petri said here and
Yeah, well, we told you what the plan is before. You know, the plan is to give you a word salad at the city council and bullshit you enough so we could get off stage and, you know, the issue can hopefully stay out of the news cycle for the week. The plan is to trust me, bro. Okay. We got a plan. Okay. In reality, they really don't have a plan because, again, the baseline of all the problems in the NYPD are that you don't have enough manpower, right? You don't have enough manpower. You don't have enough experienced personnel on the jobs still. Most of patrol is, again, we talked about this a while ago. Most of patrol now are Gen Zers, right? And it's that big elephant in the room that everyone wants to avoid, you know, which is why we put out a video not about a couple of days ago called City Council Kayfabe. Okay. Once again, kayfabe is, you know, it's that unspoken agreement where everyone pretends wrestling is real, right? This is like kayfabe to me, okay? Because everyone is pretending they don't know what the elephant in the room is, okay? While continuing on those conversations. The elephant in the room is you need more cops. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing substantially will be solved unless you have enough manpower in the streets, okay? And the baseline and the problem with that is you're not going to get there because, again, there are budget issues. And in order to solve those budget issues, one of the problems is we don't want to address the waste and fraud and malfeasance in New York City government. Okay. So until we address that, we're not going to get the budget needed to get enough manpower on the streets. And until we get enough manpower on the streets, you're not going to be able to effectively put a clamp on all the street takeovers, you know. And in addition to that, in the background of all of this is the anti-police agenda that's happened, okay, and the failure of the job and of its stakeholders, to use that stupid World Economic Forum term, which include the unions and the fraternal organizations, everybody, right, in the whole ecosystem. The failure of them to push back against a lot of these laws that hamper police, like we've talked about the last week, right, with the diaphragm law. Okay, so all of that is in the background and it's not being talked about. And until those issues are solved, this isn't going to be addressed properly.
You know what I say? I call bullshit on Jessica Tisch and her jellyfish, Michael Petri, who's the chief of department for the NYPD. And I'll tell you why. I went to CompStat almost every 4 to 6 weeks working the South Bronx. And you know what's at the top of a CompStat package? Every commanding officer in the NYPD. If you're active, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're retired, And if you worked in the Comstat era or post-stat, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Every commanding officer goes to Comstat with a giant book, a book so heavy that half the time they usually have their drivers carry it because it's so big. And you know what's the top piece of paper in that package? The roster. And it would go the same for anyone that's going to New York City Council because they know damn well what questions are going to be on the table, what the topic is. And she, when I say she, Jessica Tisch, would have the roster for each precinct and also a citywide roster breakdown, a borough breakdown. There is nothing in the NYPD that is not analyzed and doesn't have some type of data. Jessica Tisch told the public, we don't forget anything here at the Finance Unfiltered. She told the public that one reason for success she will have as a police commissioner is the fact that she's data driven. So if you remember, Jessica Tisch, you said that you're data driven. How could you not provide the data when Phil Wong asked a specific question? You didn't even need the roster in front of you. All you had to say is, do they have the manpower that they had before? And what is their manpower now? Is it up to 100% as it was? She couldn't answer that question. But what's amazing, and we talked about this on prior episodes, is that there's never any pushback. Never any pushback on the NYPD, and especially Jessica Tisch when it comes to these questions. It was a very simple question. I don't think the question was answered. But that's why we need former NYPD cops that are retired to start running for city council so that these kind of questions could actually have follow-up questions. Because Phil Wong should have said, okay, if you don't have the roster in front of you, could you tell me, is the manpower at 100% rate in comparison to 1995, or give another year, just as like they love to give the comparisons at the ComStat sheets. And what's also interesting, I've been watching sometimes Jessica Tisch when she gives her bedtime stories. If she wants to tell a story of success, she'll be the one to give that delivery. But it's interesting. If you notice sometimes when it's a story that's full of shit, she passes it on to someone else, and she has someone else do her dirty work. And in this case, she gave that dirty work to that jellyfish, Mike LePetri, who Mike LePetri regurgitated bullshit. That's why I have a problem with every active chief in this NYPD who's complicit in the lies that they're gaslighting to the public, especially the chief of department, who has 30-some-odd years experience, who's actually an intelligent man. But no longer are you intelligent. Now you're stupid. You might as well put a ball gag in your mouth because you know damn well that's a lie. 92 Charlie, shout out to you. 92 Charlie says, here's a 4-star puppet afraid to speak out and be honest and say the NYPD precincts is turning out a full complement of personnel on each tour. She used Mike LePetri to just give out bullshit and lie to the public. Shame on you. You know damn well you're gaslighting the public.
Yeah, I don't know, man. She goes further in that hearing. I'm not going to replay it, but she says, because every single council member, even the defund the police council members, even the ones that did pass the diaphragm law, not the people that support the NYPD like Phil Wong, she goes on to say that at one point, well, there's more cops on patrol than there was in 2024, meaning I put more cops on patrol than there was when I took over. So she's telling you patrol's been absolutely diminished. Mikey G, you keep asking, you're very persistent. He keeps asking, how many cops do you think are on patrol right now, and or in the NYPD right now? I'm gonna say, like, just based upon the fact, like, I talk about it all the time. I've been talking about it since 2023. The cadence of police officers does not feel the same. I grew up in New York City. I was a bad kid. I became a cop. I pay attention to the cop cars I see around, the unmarks, whether they're in plain clothes, the detectives, the guys in the marked cars. I do not see that same cadence whenever I'm around New York City. I do not see that same flow of cops patrolling. I'm going to say that the head count's near 19,000 to 23,000, somewhere along those lines. And with that, there is zero focus on patrol, because even if you had those numbers, if you properly staffed the patrol commands and had those commands staffed and people in uniform answering radio runs, you would see cops patrolling, and you don't. And again, look at the another thing that hasn't been brought up at all, that they were consistently crushing crushing the Adams administration over, and they totally deserved it. They were crushing them on response times. You don't hear any council member bring up response times anymore, because if you hear what the response times are, people are going to lose their mind. And why are the response time high if you have a fully staffed, fully stocked NYPD? Why are those 911 calls not being answered properly? What are you guys doing? Are we still running prostitution rings in One Police Plaza? Are we still shaking down restaurants out of One Police Plaza and the mayor's office? What are we doing? Are we still selling contracts and bundling votes for people? What are we doing? So obviously it's not police work. Where are all the people? Where are all the things? So John Schell, who wants to reinvent himself and Eric Adams, he tweeted this. He said, when I was the chief of patrol and the chief of department of NYPD, we put a lot of focus to mitigate this activity, and it worked. So it definitely didn't work. I will say, though, they put a lot of focus into it, but it didn't work. This was the #1 community complaint. In 3 years, we confiscated over 100 illegal mopeds and street racing ghost cars. Here is how. Now, those numbers are highly inflated, and confiscated doesn't mean they kept. Remember that. And those numbers are highly, highly, highly inflated. Incident commander was a chief. One location to turn out the team. Social media monitoring of these car clubs, which needs to be done, right? Real-time notifications through designated group text and operations to 6 a.m. It worked. Intelligence Bureau heavily involved. He keeps saying it worked. It didn't work, but this is what he's 100% right here. Like, you need to do this. 2, citywide nightly deployment using 100 CRT highway and other available personnel and equipment, such as heavy tow trucks and Star Chase tracking devices. 3, fixed wing intel plane that can fly 4 hours with tracking equipment and 2 pilots. This was supplemented by helicopters for no gaps in the night. Call sign the plane Ghost Rider. Why you're giving the call sign, I have no idea. Encrypted radios for the field units, 311, 911, direct from operations. The car groups could not listen to us. Agreed. Mobile Taru cameras at known hotspots, monitored throughout the evening, supplemented by X-10 drones. Have each borough submit an apprehension plan and scheme for their historic locations. 6, fix cars at bridge crossings to shut down known as to escape routes. 7, utilize the NYPD social media to exploit what you are doing, and videos of taking daddy's 80K car. Very powerful. District attorneys were on board. Asset forfeiture was the name of the game. So I'm going to tell you right now, district attorneys are not on board because the overwhelming majority of those cases didn't get drawn up, and the overwhelming majority of those forfeitures never happened. So I don't know what you're talking about. If the DAs were on board, we wouldn't be experiencing any of the problems that you're experiencing in New York City. I received much criticism for this activity because it entailed pursuits. However, we were highly successful. We were highly successful. 911, 311 calls for roving bands, reckless driving was down 75% over 3 years. You have to be committed to this and push the envelope for this to work. So I'm going to tell you right now, John, the reason that the calls were down 75% is because people just got sick of calling 911 and you guys doing absolutely nothing about it. That's the real reason. So while I will say they did a heavy social media focus, if you watch these kids drive, NYPD cops have no business engaging into pursuits. It's completely reckless, and you're not catching these kids. The only way you're catching them if they wipe out. Cops are not trained to drive like this. These kids drive recklessly. They endanger the lives of everybody around them. That vehicle pursuits is not the way to go. Forfeiture absolutely is the way to go, but you actually need the DAs on board. You actually need criminal prosecutions of people. You need fines of people. You need licenses suspended, and you need those cars taken. And we don't have the DAs on board to do that. So while he laid out a great blueprint, a lot of what he said is highly inaccurate in there. But if that blueprint was followed with the DAs, without the car pursuits, Is this stopping by the summertime? No, but you're going to put a huge dent in it. This is not an overnight fix. There's nothing you could do overnight to fix this. This is a culture that was created and festered. It started under de Blasio, it festered under Adams, and it's going to go further under Mondani. This is going to take a while to fix, but you need to start taking these cars and then, yeah, absolutely, go on social media. Yeah, we just took this guy's car and now we're selling it. Put the video of it being sold. Put your auctions live on TV so people could see their cars. Yeah, we're just doing the car meetups today. Anybody want a nice new BMW M5? Cars, great handling car.
Yeah, Shell's efforts were misguided. They're misguided because again, we live in a densely populated urban area, and people get killed from those car pursuits, and the fatalities and injuries were up as a result of Shell, pushing these rookies to do pursuits, right? It was misguided. And if they had solved anything, this wouldn't continue again, right? The problem is that we live in a no consequence, society and city, and there's really no consequences for bad behavior and criminality, and that is not being addressed. Okay, and again, we talk about the lack of cops on the street, because if you had properly staffed neighborhoods, precincts, you would have guys doing car stops, and I believe that we would be catching a lot of these guys who are driving around in Beamers and doing donuts all over the place if we were pulling people over in neighborhoods, okay? And going back to the old days where these guys feared police. Now, I'm very suspect about all of this happening right now. To me, it seems that there might be some sort of nationwide push for young people to keep doing these street takeovers. Because why is it happening simultaneously in all these cities? Okay, all these big cities, it's happening at the same time. Now, I've said before that America has a nihilistic youth problem, nihilistic, disaffected youth who, this is how they get their rocks off now. Okay, they have these takeovers, these street meetups and street takeovers where they just wild out. Okay, so America does have a problem with that, but I'm very suspicious that there is someone pushing these people to have these events now. And I'm saying this because right, all the you notice that like in the NYPD, the answer to a lot of this is to add more technology. Okay, in New York City, the answer to all of this is, instead of let's returning New York City to a city where there's consequences, instead of that, there's a push to dance around that with technology and see if we could solve it with technology. And in the case of this, I think the push is going to be more technology, more cameras on the block watching you, right? And as you can see here, there's already a push for more noise cameras. Okay, these are cameras that are rarely talked about, by the way, but they're up there and you really don't know where they are, right? There are cameras that get turned on by sound. Okay, so if the sound reaches a certain decibel level, the cameras go on and start filming the road. Okay, and there are more of these cameras coming because the NYPD is touting this as like a solution to the noise problems that are happening in certain neighborhoods, and a lot of the neighborhoods that we talked about here, like the South Bronx, right? So, and if you see this here, look further down in the article. I'll post the article for you guys to read it yourselves. But look what it says further down in the article, right? You know what would be even better for those cameras? AI, right? So I'm very suspect of what's happening now, because it seems also convenient to let this happen so that we can create an even bigger surveillance city and smart city, right? Smart city than we already have. Okay, and as Phil Wong said just now, he's looking at the DOT for a solution. Well, what has the DOT been doing so far? They've been making driving a car in the city even more of a pain in the ass than it already is, okay? Because they don't want you driving in the city. They want you using the shitty public, the MTA transportation network, okay? So I'm very suspect of why this is happening now and why the city council, the NYPD, and all these politicians are all dancing around the real elephants in the room and finding tech as the answer instead of solving the problems that really need to be solved.
So in my travels throughout the entire country, what I've noticed is that all the smart cities are walking and they're moving in lockstep. And this is not just an NYPD thing. Yes, I think the NYPD is a complete failure in their leadership in handling this. I think John Shell laid out a punch list of items that they were doing, which you're supposed to do anyway. And I don't think you get an attaboy of doing what you're supposed to do. That's what the NYPD is supposed to do. You're supposed to have social media. You're supposed to have preventive measures for this not to happen. You're supposed to have intrusive police work. That's what you're supposed to do as the chief of department. So I'm not going to laud you because you're doing what you're supposed to do. But I do think there is something happening on a national level. I think there's a bigger agenda here. And what do you see at these big meetups, especially this big meetup here? Palestinian flags. So I think this is part of a bigger agenda. I think it's happening nationwide. And we see it in all these smart cities. So that's a great point you bring up, Marlon. You see it in cities like Denver. You see it in cities like LA, in New York. Right? These are smart cities right now that have moved towards technology, which is why I believe if you look back at Eric Adams, his administration, when the mass exodus started to become so prevalent and you couldn't deny it, he said they weren't concerned by it. They weren't concerned, and it would give them an opportunity to make it more diverse. But the reality is the diversity, which he was actually indicating, in my opinion, was artificial intelligence. And that's where everything is moving to. That's part of the correlation and the connection to defund the police and move to artificial intelligence. And I do believe it's happening on a national level. I do believe that there could be some type of George Soros funding behind this. Do I think that there are kids that are legitimately jumping onto this, that want to have these meetups and think they could just have a good time and are feeding off the fact that the NYPD and other cities are just completely eradicated and that they're emasculated, there's no manpower? Yes. To me, it's kind of similar to the George Floyd riots. When I was present at those George Floyd riots, there were youngsters in that group. They wanted to protest. They thought they were actually there to protest, and there were just paid agitators and paid actors that were there just to poison the whole thing and poison the well for them. So they didn't really get an opportunity to actually protest. I think the same thing is happening with these meetups. I think there are paid agitators and paid actors throughout this entire nation right now that are being involved in these meetups, so that there could be artificial intelligence pushed into it right now. I do see a bigger agenda. It's more far as defund the police. Now, I think that it's interesting. One thing John Shell put up, I thought was kind of funny. He said, "Oh, we had balls then." Balls? You're supposed to have professionalism. You were completely reckless. Tell me, how is it a success that the khaki pants, the criminal response team, was actually driving around and actually initiated numerous pursuits that ended up in people getting seriously injured, and actually some people met their demise. So how is that a success? Because the police, their responsibility is to have crime prevention, but also preserve life. So I don't understand how you're going to laud that as a success. And if you remember, John Shell, you were the chief of the department not that long ago, and under your reign and under your leadership, these failures were happening while Kaz Daughtry was saying, "Oh, we outside, we outside." So you have these same failures. It's just now it's getting more prevalent, more eyes are on it because Zohran Mamdani is the mayor, and Jessica Tisch has captured and seized the media. The media is terrified. There's no pushback on Jessica Tisch. They know this is out of control. And that's the point, and that's where we're at right now. I think this is a national level. I think there are people there that just want to get involved in this meetup, but I do think this is on a bigger playing field.
So if you watch, this is also, someone told me that this was still Mass Pet, but I think this is Jamaica if you look at it. So this is the same evening, right? Two different meetups, same time, dozens of people, dozens of kids. It really is dangerous. And if you watch what happened, if you could see there, someone got cracked and they're into that other car's bumper, and the guy just kept going. He cracked the kid with the tail of his car, and he just keeps going. He doesn't, no regard for life. Now, you're sleeping, your property's here, it's being damaged. Really reckless. We showed you the other day where they were actually firing automatic gunfire out of the car. Something that, is insane. The problem here is that, and I'm going to try to bring these videos up because somebody mentioned it in here. They're like, check out License on Instagram. There's a bunch of Instagram handles. The problem is you can't go out and race with these kids. You just can't. If you do, all you're going to do is get them when they already crashed and more than likely killed someone. That is the only way you're going to be able to get these kids, because they are seriously reckless when they drive. So we talked about that before. And, if you had the proper manpower out there, what you would really want to do is get these groups ahead of time. You would be proactive in having a lot of checkpoints throughout the city, and then grabbing these kids with the fake license, locking them up for having the fake license plate, and then prosecuting them and confiscating that car. A lot of the issue is, though, a lot of these cars are rented too. A lot of this content's being generated by rental cars. These kids are making money doing this again. That's what no one understands. This is a money-driven business. They're making money doing it. So what they do is they rent these cars. There needs to be proactive work done with these rental agencies, and there needs to be proactive work done out on the streets. But what do you need on the streets to do that? You need manpower. Again, this happened in the 110 and the 104, so I'll focus on the 110 and the 104. But in the 104, right now on paper, they have about 115 cops. They should probably have about 230. The 110 has about 134 cops on paper. They should probably have another 100 cops at least, right? And there should be people out in the evenings all summer long in all of these precincts, and their only job is quality of life. Their only job is checkpoints on the roads, making sure these cars are up to par. Now, and I'm talking hammering them when they're not. You have tinted windows, boom, you're getting hammered. You got a camera set up on your vehicle. Oh, I didn't catch you doing anything. Yeah, you're not allowed to have that. Boom. Hammer them with summonses, hammer them with arrests, forfeiture their car. You need the DAs on board. You need the traffic courts on board. You need a whole of government approach to this. That what we don't need is speed bumps and speed cameras that are going to target law-abiding Americans and just generate more revenue, because that's what you're going to get. If you complain loud enough and you don't have the proper solutions, what you're going to get is just you paying more money and still dealing with all the same problems. I'm going to bring this up right now. Forgive me if I don't get this right, because I usually traditionally don't go through Instagram for this. So I don't know how to play from here, but let's see. Let's go to my Instagram. Let's see. I'm just going to show you why you cannot chase these kids. I'm not going to put the music on, but watch this kid driving in and out. Looks like he's either on the belt or he's on the BQE here. I can't tell. I think he's on the belt here. You're not chasing these kids on this highway. It is wild. It's video after video after video. Look at them. They call it swimming. They're swimming in traffic. And there's multiple of them doing it. And this is what they do to generate content. They also, to generate content, have cops chasing them, which is wild. Look, this guy, if you watch what he just did, he got the attention of the cops. And then he gave him the finger and he went. And if you watch what he does now, he's going to start brighting the cops. He's brighting them. He's telling them, come get me, come get me, come get me. You can't chase these kids. You got to get them ahead of time. And then you have to locate where their vehicles are and forfeit them and actually take them and sell them. Not give it back to their parents. Not give it back to them. When it's a rental car, when it's a lease car, yeah, they're responsible for all the payments. They're responsible for it. And then you know what? You know what's going to happen? These rental car companies will have to come up with some type of policy or some type of thing where they're gonna have to vet who they're giving these cars to more. Because what's happening is that's exactly what's happening. They're renting a lot of these cars, And even after the rental, they take a fake plate and they put it on so you can't trace it back to the person that rented it, or it's their own car and then they put the fake plate on so you can't trace it back. So what you really want to do is target like a small number. You're not going to grab all of them at one night. You're just not. I mean, if you treated this like you treat other investigations, you could get everyone. If you broke down the evening and did the camera canvas, I don't know if that would be just as effective as if you just honed in on one guy. You had a helicopter follow that car around. You had drones follow that car around, and you go and you take that car and you put it all over social media, and you do that every night. And then you do your checkpoints and you put that on social media, and you take those cars and you continuously take these cars and hammer these individuals and arrest these individuals and prosecute these individuals. You could get a good hold on this by midsummer. Right now, it's on pace to explode.
Yeah, it is. I kind of disagree on the checkpoints, though. I don't think that's it really is productive, you know. And I'm saying this because I was thinking a lot about this last night. On my block, I saw one of the units pull over someone. I'm gonna assume they ran the stop sign, you know, because there's a couple of them around this block. But I thought to myself, you know what? I suppose they probably you know, egregiously ran a stop sign, you know. But you know, at this point, I don't think it's productive to when you're stopping regular folks for, you know, I think there's so much going on in this city that, you know, we need to target the people who are causing the problems, okay? And everybody knows who's doing the problems. If you every cop who's been on who has a sector long enough knows who the problems are in their precinct, okay? You know the guys who are working on those beamers. You just know it, okay? You know where to find them, okay? And I think when you do checkpoints, a lot of times it's to me it's like a waste, because the perps are smart enough they're smart enough to pull away as soon as they see the checkpoint a couple blocks away, you know.
But that's due to poor planning, because if you did a proper checkpoint, nobody could back out, nobody could get away. If you did a proper checkpoint on the highway that you know they're going to be on, or the offshoot that they're coming onto, no one's getting away. They're not going to be able to tuck tail out of that. Like a lot of those checkpoints, I'm not talking stupid traffic orientated checkpoints. I'm talking targeted checkpoint where you're looking for these street racers. You're getting guys pulling in there with fake plates. You're getting guys pulled there with unregistered vehicles, with uninsured vehicles, unlicensed, suspended things. You're taking these guys off and you're taking their car.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I've seen enough checkpoints that you watch the cops, nobody's interested in being there, right? The cops don't want to be there. The boss just wants to hurry up and, you know, check a couple boxes.
But Marlon, that's because the NYPD leadership is weak on top of they're incompetent. And what do they want? Just go get me the numbers. Just go get me the numbers. I don't care if you get a racer or if you get grandma who rolls into the checkpoint and forgot her insurance card. I just need a summons. No, you come back with grandma with an insurance card, I'm going to smack you in the back of the head and you're going to be standing on a foot post instead of doing that. I told you to go hammer these vehicles. Like, what are you doing? Like, targeted enforcement. This is what it is. This is what's called criminally profiling people, for those of you that get upset about it, right? This is what you do. You profile these vehicles and don't chase those numbers, dude. Like, I don't care if you get the one summons. You heard what they said at the end of the thing. And then they went through the whole news report, right? The whole news report, there was a cop car that was destroyed. There was someone I showed you, someone that was injured as a result of it, and it looked seriously injured if you looked at it. There was property damage done. There was all of this insanity ensues. And what they say, and the NYPD issued one summons for blocking the crosswalk. Like, I don't want that blocking the crosswalk summons. I want someone in handcuffs and I want their car done. or I want someone to get 30 summonses. You got tints on all your windows. You got you don't have the proper lights on your vehicle. You have this hanging off your vehicle. You take out that VTL. What you do is that's when you take these young guys. You don't put these young guys in a car and go chase these kids that are talented and really could probably do well racing cars. I don't want you chasing that because you probably don't drive a car that good. I don't want you chasing that. I don't want you endangering the public. I want you hammering these cars. That's is when you take these young guys, you train them in the VTL, you train them in the penal code, you train them to target exactly this problem, and you put the checkpoint out there and you put competent leadership out there and with a competent goal. And that's when that's when you go after. You don't go after the working man. You go after these little scumbags with fake plates on. That's who you're going after.
Yeah. I agree. At the baseline, we both agree on the same problem. On the issue, it's that too often checkpoints in the NYPD are just a lazy means of doing what following orders. Because the CO wants or the XO has traffic stack coming up, so we got to give him his numbers. And it's
weak and competent leadership. Weak and competent leadership, dude. I agree with you 100%. It get lost in the sauce. But if you start out right and you put that information out there, look, these guys don't get a lot of shit, dude. I said it time and time again. I used to go into roll calls and I would go through the watch list. I would go through whatever criminal patterns we were hearing. And it was like I invented fire. Cops on patrol were like, what is this? I never heard this. I never heard a patrol sergeant tell me to do this. And then guess what they were doing? They were going out and locking up the perps. They were solving criminal patterns on patrol in Sector Eddy. And everybody's like, how's that happening? It's like, oh, because I gave them the tools to win instead of hiding all the information and trying to keep it to myself. That's what needs to happen. You need people that are involved, that are invested, that care. And they don't have that right now.
Well, I just want to weigh in on this. And I want to tell you this. I think that checkpoints are good as a supplemental tool, as a preventive measure to stop this, but it's not the end all be all. I've done a lot of checkpoints myself. I've also seen the outcomes of checkpoints. And the thing about a checkpoint, the problem is they're non-arbitrary, right? And there has to be a pattern set when you do a checkpoint, right? Either you stop every third car, every fourth car, every second car. It has to be a pattern set. And I think with social media, the problem is once the information is already provided, that these checkpoints out there, obviously it could be easily avoided. I think it's good for a quick blitz, but I don't think it's the ultimate solution, because I see these checkpoints. They're productive, I believe, when someone is driving while intoxicated, or maybe if a car is stolen, it's just something isolated. But when you have a correlated, coordinated group, a large group, we're talking about hundreds of people that are involved in these gatherings. Once social media provides information spread out, they're not going the same routes as these checkpoints. And because these checkpoints have to have a neutralized type of pattern, like every third car, every second car, I don't think it's effective. I just think it's a good supplemental tool.
Oh, wait a minute, though. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. They need the pattern, but you're at a checkpoint and someone comes through with a visible fraction. You could stop that car. Checkpoints are non-arbitrary because you're not stopping someone based on something. You're checking their paperwork. You're checking their paperwork without observing an infraction. But if you observe an infraction right away, that X's that out. You have tints on your car. It doesn't need to be arbitrary anymore. I observed an infraction as you roll through. It's over.
Right. So, I understand what you're saying. But just to stop these cars, it has to be non-arbitrary, just to make these stops. So I have to look on that. I'm not going to argue that one right now because I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I don't think you could just stop that car because it has tints. Almost every car has some type of minor VTL or traffic infraction. I don't know if you could stop that car with the tints part of that checkpoint. I think it's
100% you can. I've done it. 100% you could do it. I've arrested people out of it as well and argued this fact in court.
But hold on, I've done a lot of checkpoints, but I'm going to look into that. I'm not 100% sure if I could say, I'm going to stop that car because they have tints and they're part of their checkpoint. So
when we're stopping a car in a checkpoint, we're stopping you non-arbitrarily because there's no infraction. right? Well, that's when it's an arbit. That's when we're saying, all right, every third car, every fourth car. There's no infraction there. I'm just checking your paperwork. I'm checking your demeanor. I see you driving with an infraction. That's it. I have probable cause to stop you. I have an infraction now. It's 100%.
I'm gonna look into that. I gotta be honest. I'm not saying you're wrong. But that wasn't my forte. I've done checkpoints, but I do know they're supposed to be non-arbitrary. As far as stopping it with tint, I don't know if that's accurate, to be honest. Because what is the whole point then of having a neutral pattern? If we're going,
I just told you because you have no probable.
I understand you told me. I just want to make. I'm going to look into it.
You have like think about it logically. I'm stopping I'm stopping every fourth car, right? I'm stopping every fourth car for no reason whatsoever. I'm stopping you, pulling you over for no reason. So I set that pattern. I see a car come through with an infraction. I see a guy come through and he looks like he starts swerving and he commits an infraction. I can't stop that car.
No, I didn't say that. That's something totally different. You're talking oranges and apples. I'm talking about an actual.
What do you mean? Probable cause. So I ignore minor infractions, but not big ones.
Well, hold on a second. That car was just coming through with tints. I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying, like I said, I wasn't a traffic guy, but you have to, at the same token, say we're talking about logically, right? What's the whole point then of stopping every car that is a neutral pattern? If we're going to stop every third car, that appears to be a ruse to stop the other cars. Now, I'm not arguing. If someone's swerving or trying to get out of that checkpoint before they enter that checkpoint, obviously that's probable cause of a traffic stop. But while they're in the while they're in that checkpoint, if they have tinted windows, I don't know if we could actually stop them. But some people saying you're right, some people saying I'm right. I'm not.
One more question. You're at the checkpoint. You stop the third car. The fourth car comes. The guy comes past you, and he's smoking crack like this.
That's different. That's totally different. That's why. That's totally. I'm talking about just stopping the car for a traffic infraction. You're talking about a crime being committed. Someone smoking crack in the car. That's a crime.
Okay. All right. So
wait. I'm not done yet. I want to make my comparison here. What I'm saying is there is a difference between a traffic infraction in that checkpoint than someone committing a crime. I think that's completely different. But go ahead.
Third car comes through. You pull the third car comes through. The fourth car comes through. He has no plates. You let him go.
That's something different. Now we have reasonable suspicion that car may have been stolen. I'm not. What I'm saying is just a car going through. There's no other infraction except for you're saying tinted windows. I'm not sure if that's good enough for stopping the tinted windows. Missing plates. That's reasonable suspicion the car may be stolen. Someone smoking crack, that's a crime. What I'm saying, I don't know if you could actually just stop that car specifically for a traffic infraction. Are you 100% confident on that?
I've done it and I've locked people up because of it.
Well, listen, I'm not saying just because we've done it doesn't mean it's right.
And I've argued it. I've argued this in court.
You understand what I'm saying, though? I think I get it.
I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying
it's reason to believe that car may be stolen. Go ahead.
It doesn't make sense because I think if you couldn't stop them, the checkpoint is protecting people that are committing infractions. It doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? You're still observing that infraction. The reason that was stopping other people, we didn't observe an infraction.
Well, hold on a second.
Anything.
Are you hearing what I'm saying? What I'm saying, I understand what you're saying, but hold on a minute. Just think about we have a checkpoint. We're talking about traffic infractions, so potentially checking these cars. Right? And there has to be a specific reason for that checkpoint. It has to be a DWI checkpoint or a GLA checkpoint. So if it's a DWI checkpoint, we're going to stop every third car, potentially preventing DWIs. Why would we stop a car in between that has tinted windows?
We're doing a car takeover checkpoint, and we're looking for vehicles that are endangering people racing through the streets. And I see someone.
You still have to have a pattern. Why would we have a pattern then?
But my pattern is because I don't have probable cause to stop that third car because he did absolutely nothing and there's no infraction there. I'm stopping you and checking your papers like we're in Nazi Germany. So you need that arbitrary thing.
But hold on,
as opposed to someone that's actually committing an infraction.
I don't think that makes sense, to be honest, because just listen to what I'm saying. You have a checkpoint. We stop every third car, potentially to find someone that's driving while intoxicated. We're not looking for tinted windows. So I don't think that now if in those travels someone's missing plates, that's something completely separate. But the point of a checkpoint has to be specifically focused. If it's DWI or it's GLA, listen, like I said, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm going to look into it. I wasn't a traffic guy. I'll be honest, that's not my forte. But I'm not 100% sure. Marlon, can you break the ice to this one? What do you think?
Well, again, I hear John's point, but I don't like checkpoints at all, right? And because the NYPD can't operate checkpoints properly, then I'm even more in favor of not doing it, because like I'll give you an example. Like when me and my partner,
well, which one's accurate here?
Say that again.
Which one's accurate here? That's a question.
I
told you back Wednesday, set up the smoke. What up, man? But we're having
weigh in, people.
Yeah,
I honestly, I think I'm right. Eric thinks he's right. That's it. It's that simple. But overall, we could get off the topic, but overall, you say no checkpoints or checkpoints. What do you say, Mar? You're saying no checkpoints, Mar? You're saying checkpoints we shouldn't do.
Yeah, I'm saying we don't do it properly. It doesn't work, because we don't do it properly. So no checkpoints. I want guys. You go to special teams. You tell them what the problems are, what the problem is. They know who to go after, and let's go after those guys in the neighborhood. Let's do some car stops, and let's find the perps. And also, you tell autocrime, listen, and the some of the specialized units in the DB to go after this from in terms of making larger cases against the shops that work with these guys, or the rental those fugazi rentals in the hood,
Yeah. Listen, like I said, John, I'm not saying you're wrong. Like I said, I'll be honest, that wasn't my wheelhouse. I've done checkpoints. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. But there are a couple of people here saying you can stop cars out of sequence. It just is,
there needs to be an infraction. There needs to be an infraction. That's.
Oh, I understand, but you have to understand logically what I'm saying makes sense, right? Why would you have to have a pattern if you can stop cars out of sequence? It just doesn't make sense. But hey, listen, but there are a couple people here said it's Sound Crackle. As I said before, I wasn't a traffic guy. I was a crime guy, but it's I don't think it matters who's right or wrong. I just whether it's effective. I don't think it's I think it's a good supplemental tool.
Ron agrees with me, but I gotta take that with a grain of salt.
Ron never agrees with me. Come on.
We can't use that as a non-biased opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ron. You a CO there.
Yeah, and Ron loves John anyway, so we know Ron always going to side with John. So
thank you, Ron.
He will fight with me, dude. I could be 100% right on anything. He'll still find a way to disagree with me.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ron, but you were CO. I remember there's a point where me and my partner were getting the most DWs in the 7-7, and we moved out of that because at a certain point it was like it's time to step our game up and move on to the big boy stuff like drugs. But I hated it at that point. We were getting the most DWs, and then we get pulled off of patrol to do a stupid car stop, to do a stupid checkpoint. Like what the hell, It's so stupid. So
but I know why you hate them, dude. But they're not done. They've never been done properly. They're done. The information doesn't come out, and they get done stupidly. That's why. First of all, they don't have the manpower on patrol to do it. Patrol shouldn't even be doing it. I know that there's this thing that we used to have. It's called auto crime, and it used to be throughout all the boroughs. Maybe bring back those teams and have a focus on that, and have these young guys focus on this. So you have guys that are well-trained in the VTL, well-trained in penal law. And you know what? Some guys are going to get DWs, but is that the purpose of your checkpoint? No, but did you save a life by getting one? Yes. And there's guys that love DUIs. Look, Sal Greco made a career of it. There's plenty of women out there who had a glass of wine with dinner with no NYCID that needed to go to jail for 0.2, 0.02. Like there's plenty of women that we needed to put slap cuffs on, so you get 4 hours of overtime and sleep the rest of the tour, But like all those calls going to happen, yeah. But if you're focused on BS numbers, then it's not. But if you're really targeting these vehicles, what's going to happen? You're creating an omnipresent. These mother effers are going to give me summonses. And besides that, the only other thing is to get those vehicles when they're parked, where they're parked. Do the investigation, get them where they're at. Chasing is not an option today in the NYPD.
Yeah.
We said it wasn't an option under Eric Adams. Jessica Tisch revised that code, made it even harder to chase a vehicle in New York City. It is not an option today. You really have no other options here, because if you go to circle these neighborhoods and you try to pull these kids over, they're taking off on you. I mean, there's thousands of videos that each day there's hundreds of videos being posted throughout New York City, and no one's going after them, and they shouldn't. It's a career ender. You're getting indicted, you go in jail. This kid crashes or he kills someone, you get indicted, go to jail. And by the way, Chief Shell, a lot of the people that you sent out to do that is in fact their future. Their careers are over. And people died as a result of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
John, John, I just want to say I'm looking up. I'll give you the win, John. I'm looking up here, and it says a car can only be stopped at a sequence if there's independent legal justification, such as traffic violation observed or reasonable suspicion, which hold on, I'm still reading. Hold on. I know you're excited, but if there's reasonable suspicion, like I said, but
thank you, Ron.
Violation. So hey, congratulations. Hey, Ron, you can go kiss John's ass on this one. Listen, I'm just saying, I'm honest, right? I'm honest. It wasn't my wheelhouse. I've done checkpoints. It just didn't seem to make sense that you can stop a car at a sequence, which is when you have a neutral pattern. But Jason we fucking told you, Larry. Thanks. Hey, listen, that's the whole point of having a discussion. But you have to admit, logically, it doesn't make sense. But either way, good to go.
I'm not admitting that.
Who's this?
I'm not admitting that.
Let's go, Cat. Says Eric makes 0 sense of this one. Thanks, bro. Oh, well. I have no problem admitting, I didn't say I was wrong, but I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong, too.
Yeah.
That's what men do.
I love all our new haters. He says Eric calls John ugly.
Yeah, but before we go on again, we move on to the next segment, or I now certain parts of the video John showed earlier might be from this. Somebody put this up. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but basically they're stating that the following night that this is the checkpoints that were at that same intersection, and that they got a summons out of it. I don't know if you were referring to the one summons from this incident, but
I don't know where the summons was. They said a blocking the crosswalk summons they got, so I doubt it was out of a checkpoint.
Yeah. So this is this person up there is they're alleging that this is a checkpoint that happened on that same block a day later, and I saw that and I'm like, really? Do you think those guys are gonna come back to that same intersection a day later? I mean, we're doing the checkpoints, and are we gonna get anybody related to the day before? It's again, to me, it's like the CO needed a checkbox for CompStat. It doesn't. Again, this solves nothing. This does nothing to solve the inherent problem that of the street takeovers. All it does is inconvenience the neighborhood and potentially make residents who are pro-police angry at the police. And this is what I thought when I saw that car stop on my block, by the way. I thought, did that guy, now if you egregiously speed through a stop sign, yes, you should be stopped and given a ticket, okay? But if you did a rolling stop, I'm at this point where, you know, we gotta pick our battles. We have bigger battles to fight, and I need you stopping the BMW who's doing donuts in the intersection, you know, rather than bothering grandma who's trying to get home, or regular Joe who just worked.
You know any cops that lock up grandmas?
Yeah. The low hanging fruit, you know, go lock up grandma and then go and spend the rest of your tour doing absolutely jack shit. Okay. You know, there's a lot of those cops. Okay. And that infuriates me. Okay. That, because again, that doesn't solve the inherent problem that we have. It's just low hanging fruit enforcement. It's just box checking so the CO could say something at CompStat.
See, but Marlon, what other options do you have at this point?
Well, yeah, I agree.
Long-term investigation.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? Like, you're gonna do they're doing this as we speak in the 104, right? Like, they're doing it as we speak. Crime Stoppers in the NYPD. I'll pull it up in a minute. They're looking for individuals and vehicles related to this incident that happened, the takeover. Other than that, what are you doing proactively to stop this?
Well, the problem is this is a whole of NYPD problem, and that you have multiple problems on multiple levels. Okay, and I agree. I mean, if we're talking that the CO needs something to immediately do, then I guess this is what you do. But it's ineffectual, and my point is that I wouldn't waste cops' time doing that. If I'm the CO, I'd rather go to crime and tell them, give me a list of give me a list of those locations where you guys know that we have street racers, where they gather or where they hang out, where they, you know, where you see the vehicles parked up, and let's target those areas. And that's what we'll bring to CompStat. Because if I'm a chief in charge of CompStat and you tell me you ran checkpoints, I'll tell you, so what? Okay, so what? This is like telling me, yeah, my guys got 10 bikes on the sidewalks because we had burglaries in the area. We summons 10 grandfathers riding a bike on the sidewalk with their grandkids. Okay, so what? How does that address the immediate problem? Okay, that's all I'm saying. I just have a problem with this because you're just inconveniencing people that are already pissed off at us, and you're making more enemies of the community rather than getting to the heart of the problem. And we all know who the problems are in the communities. Let's get straight to that, and let's push cops to do that, and let's call out the stupid low-hanging fruit enforcement.
Here's one solution I think would work, or at least an attempt. So when I was a special operations lieutenant in PSA 7, they had a pilot program. It started in Brooklyn North, and then it went on to the Bronx, and it was called Ceasefire. It was supposed to be a correlation between anti-crime and with a focus on anti-crime, but the precincts working out to arrest gang members, summons gang members, or even just notify gang members that they are potential victims of crime or they've been victims of crime, and have an engagement and have a coordination amongst the sheriff's office, the DA's office, the judges. They were all supposed to be on board for a period of time. Sometimes it was 30 days or 60 days, where there would be a blitz on a particular gang that was either the victim of a retaliatory incident or they've been actually the perpetrators of numerous shootings. And they would all be sent letters and be summons and let them know that they're on notice. And any infraction, even if it's just something that was summonsable, they would be arrested. And then the sheriff's office would remove things like Nintendo or their Xbox if they're not paying their tickets. Unfortunately, it started out as a good idea, but not everyone was on board, and these judges really weren't doing their job. These judges were way too liberal in it. But if we had some type of correlation with all the agencies on board that, hey, we're going to impound these cars, it's actually going to cost them money. And that's how you hit these kids, because they don't want to tell their parents, hey, I can't pay for this car right now. I can't get this car back, or it's a rental car, and they're stuck with that rental car on their record. They can't get it back. And that might be a step in the right direction, but you got to get those DA's offices and the judges on board.
Another thing that came out, what is it? Where am I? Another thing that came out is that state Senate, they're calling for stricter legislation about these car meetups. So hold on, let me just pull up exactly what they're asking for. I'm curious what you guys think about this. So New York State Senate Bill S5770, known as Brendan Law, which would prohibit participation, including spectators, within 200 feet of any motor vehicle, speed contest, sideshow, and street takeover, authorizes seizure and forfeiture. What do you guys think about that? A lot of people are like, that's bullcrap because, why am I, as a spectator, this is America, why can't I spectate? I think that the laws are already all here. I don't know necessarily that we need more law. I just know that you need DAs on board, and I don't think right now you have that. So what do you think about Brendan's law?
I haven't dug too deep into it yet, but you do need DAs on board. You need the problem is that there's an agenda here. That's one of the problems, right? If you get the agenda is they don't want people getting locked up and they want to empty out Rikers. Okay, so we're in a we're like I said before, we're in a no consequence society right now. Okay. And instead of having the whole of government tackling that vocal minority of perps in the city, they don't want to do that because that means locking up people, and that's costly. And there's clearly an agenda going on here, and that's why, again, how long have we been talking about the police department not going after who's funding these protests? Right now, they're not going to go after. They're not going to look into who's organizing and these nationwide street takeovers. They're not going to do that. And it's ignoring it and dancing around it when this would cut. It would basically cut the head off the snake, and they don't want to do that. To me, this is all an agenda, and letting all of this fester is very convenient to a lot of the agendas that the people in city council, the people Mamdani wants, and the contracts that big business and big tech wants. So you need a whole of government approach, and you're just not going to get there right now.
So I think this is a really interesting law, Brandon's law. So I looked into it. So we often talk about when you're a cop and you're working, right, crimes where people are acting in concert, right? And anyone who's ever did police work knows long enough. If you make a burglary collar, right? If you arrest, let's say there's 3 guys and they break into a home, 2 guys break into the house, and the 1 guy stands outside as a lookout, and we apprehend all, potentially, rhetorically speaking, let's say we apprehend all 3 perpetrators. What are all those 3 perpetrators charged with? Keep in mind, the lookout never went inside. What are all those 3 perpetrators charged with? Burglary, right? So even though the lookout never went inside the house, he gets charged with the same crime because he's a participant acting in concert in the same manner. So I think it kind of would correlate the same way. If the spectators are participants, like if they're waging on the races, if they're betting on it, if they're there and they're pulling people to the scene, if they're somehow acting in concert, if they're helping it promote it, if they're promoting it on social media, they're now part of that. They're acting in concert. They're acting in concert to facilitate a crime, right? Facilitate a crime of racing and all those people gathering. If you're just there, you happen to pull up and see it and you watch it and you're not engaged in that type of activity, to me, that's different. That's a form of expression. But if you're there as a spectator and you're somehow a participant in that manner, then I understand the law. It makes sense.
I hear you, and I agree. I just don't think that it's going to be enforceable, especially with the district attorneys. You can't even keep anybody that was doing it. You're like, oh yeah, this dude was doing 360 donuts. Crack this guy. Kept doing 360 donuts and left, and then you're like, yeah, I just don't see anything here. So Stay Trained Up says, if you're spectating from a good distance, you're good. However, if you're an active participating spectator, you get locked up as well. It's called consequences. Look, I agree. I totally agree with both of you, and I hear it from the civil rights aspect of it too. I hear it from people complaining about that, but there needs to be a broken window style approach to addressing this. And basically what I'm saying is you need to give the fear of consequences to all of these kids that are partaking in this reckless behavior. And you're not going to do that without putting pen to paper and putting handcuffs on people. It's not going to happen. And I hear a lot of people saying the whole thing about the checkpoints. I get it. The problem is poor, weak leadership. Information doesn't properly trickle down to the people that are on the ground doing these checkpoints, and they do numbers for numbers instead of actually looking to solve problems. So I don't know. I don't think the law is a bad thing, but I don't think we need it, because the laws are already there. What we need is DAs on board for the forfeiture. If, I don't know about forfeiture law for racing vehicles. I think we could. I'm not 100%. I know for DWI, 100% the forfeiture law is there. So if that's not there for street takeovers and racing vehicles, then that needs to get updated, and we definitely need a law to address that, which this does.
Well, I think that makes sense. If that would fall under Brendan's law, as far as you could seize the car if they're promoting the racing, because as of now, that's not in the books, right? You can't seize the car just for those reasons. So I think that would make sense. But yet, acting in concert is a crime in itself already. So it doesn't really change too much other than that part. That's what I'm trying to say. You're acting in concert, and that's why I give that analogy. If you're a lookout in a burglary, you can charge with the same crime. If you're a lookout in a stolen car and you never actually jumped in the car, if you're a lookout so your buddy can go jump into a car and drive off with it, you get charged with the same crime. You acted in concert, you facilitated that crime as well. So is it necessary? It may be necessary just for the seizure and the asset forfeiture aspect of it. But I just wanted to expand one more thing. We talk about what type of proactive policing or intrusive policing is best to stop these car meetups. And I think what's best is social media. Now, I'm not a big social media guy. I've obviously had to use social media now that we're having this network for the past couple of years. But when I was doing anti-crime and special operations, some of those young guys that worked for me, they were so good on social media. We get such good information, good intelligence. I think that's the way to go. There's no way these meetups happen without social media. Definitely using Instagram and Facebook, especially Instagram and things like that. I think social media is the biggest intrusive type of police work to stop these meetups.
There might be a larger discussion here about competency also. First, I agree that the forfeiture laws should be they should be updated, and there definitely should be some discussions going on about that with the DA. The DA's office should at least be on board with that. But I think there might be a larger conversation here about competency and experience in the PD, because what are the FIOs doing? You have enough tools when you're in that office. Let me tell you. You have enough tools in that office to track these cars, okay? And there are enough LPR readers around the city and cameras and whatnot for you to go back and track that car back to its owner, okay? And this is what the FIOs should be doing, okay? And I think a lot of times they have special, a lot of times these precincts have these special teams doing nonsense, okay? Or they have the special teams are out there looking, they're looking for activity, but you need to be looking, they should be targeting the immediate problems right now, okay? So in the case of the FIOs, in the case of like the 104, the 110 FIO, that's what their FIO officers should be looking at right now before the summertime gets here. And they should be gathering that. If the problem is at such an extent that it's outside their precinct, like the cars are outside their precinct, then they should be being addressed by that. Info should be forwarded to Intel or Autocrime, and there should be a larger case going on right now, but even still, even if they're outside the command, it don't matter. The FIO should, if the cars go back to South Bronx, it's time for us to go to terrorize them in the South Bronx, okay? And let those guys put the fear back in these guys that the minute you hit the streets with that car is going to be ours. We know who you are. So, but I think that involves competency, and that involves, knowing how that you have access to these databases and how to use these databases to your advantage. Because again, the entire city is blanketed with. I haven't been a cop in 4 years, but I'm telling you right now, if you threw me in a bag and threw me in that office, I got to go find some of these cars, because again, the whole city's peppered with trackers and sensors, and you all have access to it. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I get what John Shell is saying, as far as having aviation and drones and these different resources. It's good for monitoring, but I don't think we should weigh heavily on aviation and drones when it comes to this, because the ultimate goal is not to get into a car chase, right? The whole purpose of aviation and drones is to monitor the routes. So we don't want to get into these checkpoints. The idea is to try to stop these meetups before they happen, right? Just as the same thing we would often say in policing, right? Especially in housing. I worked in housing almost my entire career. If there's two guys drinking, right, with open containers in the back of let's say in the back of the Patterson houses, or in Mott Haven, Mott Haven house has this big courtyard, right? Let's say people are there with open containers. If two guys are there just drinking, is it really a big deal? Not necessarily, but you would address that issue so that you don't have 50 people out there drinking later. And then, God forbid, there's some type of violence. If the cops have to go in there and there's 50 to 100 people drunk or intoxicated, that's a big deal. So I think it's kind of the same way. Is you have to hit these small pockets. You got to get them before these large meetups happen. When the meetups happen, it's complete failure. You're already behind the 8 ball, and the only outcomes could be negative, right? Is getting involved in these car chases. We don't have the manpower. John, you're right. I would not chase these kids. These kids, first of all, when you're young, you don't see your mortality, right? You don't see your mortalities. When you're older and you're professional, you have a lot more to worry about. These kids, they don't see that. So they drive erratic and they drive crazy. So we have to get it before it happens.
Yeah. Just to go back on that, somebody put up a comment, said we're out of touch. I don't know if he was talking about us in this, but he says the FIO are stuck doing mobile field force and DV cases. And J-Dog, that cuts to the heart of the problem of what we said earlier, that the job, you need more cops, right? The city's understaffed. Okay, we have nearly 9 million people, yet we have the manpower of 7 million people, and that just doesn't, the math just doesn't work out on that, right? But again, going back to the competency part, right? This is where you need competency. So if the CO is dealing with these street takeovers, and his personnel are being sent out to mobile field force, then somebody needs to talk up somewhere, because are you going to wait till this problem becomes a big issue in the summertime? Or are you going to wait till some people get killed in these street takeovers in your command, and then you're going to get bounced because you didn't do anything? So this is where competency needs to come into play. And also in intel, is Rebecca Weiner looking at this, or is she busy trying to find a reason to, block your freedom of speech on the internet?
She wants to have diversity in the cars. We need diversity. Make sure there's all different types of cars there.
She's busy right now. She's got to listen to us for 3 hours. Come on, leave her alone.
Yeah, true. She's probably trying to find a way to lock us up right now.
Hey,
right?
John, what do you think her name is in the chat?
Oh no, she watches from a distance. We're friends though, just in case you guys didn't know.
On LinkedIn?
Yeah, we're friends on LinkedIn. I was actually flat. I was blushing a little when I saw it.
You should have told her to get back to those stopping those street takeovers.
Yeah,
John, she doesn't think you're a white guy, man. You're Italian. It's different.
It's true. It's true. So like we said, you know what? Before we go further, let's just real quick. Again, this episode's brought to you by the Key. NYPD Sergeant class just started. It's going to start. The class is going to start, on May 2nd. So we got you the code for just one more week. So our code is finest699. So the classes that are normally $849, you're going to get $150 off. Like we said, it's 10 classes. It's 7 locations. It's all across the city, including Suffolk, Nassau, and Rockland. So there's absolutely no excuse. Everything online. 2 separate lessons a week from 2 different instructors that you could access online as well if you can't make the classes. And 100%, if you got 3 years on the job or you'll have 3 years on the job as of May 2nd, make sure you sign up for the key. If you want to be a sergeant, just follow and do what they say to do. Take advantage of this code. A lot of you idiots, a lot of you guys, seriously, we ran it for 2 weeks. Fine is $6.99, and then I just kept getting message after message, literally the next day that it went down, and throughout the next couple of weeks. What's the code again? What's the code again? And I'm like, come on, are you serious? I told you it was just for these weeks. This is the last week. So what I'm saying is, do it today. Don't do it tomorrow. Don't do it. Stop being cheap. Get the $150 off. Sign up. Study. If you're on the list, if you're 2,700 and above, you're not going to be a sergeant. Study again. That's it. Sign up. Fine at $6.99. So anything else on that before we continue on with this?
No, take the key. Shout out to the guys. They're doing a great job, by the way. And John Monahan, who was on here, Ralph Salento, and George Misford. Keep doing what you guys are doing. Support the key. Absolutely, because the key supports you.
Absolutely.
One last thing, right? You know why you still annoy me in the precinct? How there's a lack of consistent policy, like consistency throughout like different platoons. What used to annoy me is like even though like when I'm out there, like I would try to go to these corners that I hated and tell them try and clear it, but then the next tour comes in and it's not a priority for them.
They said I could stand it. The other guy said I could stand it.
Yeah, they don't care. And then the 4x comes in, they don't care either, and they're also too busy in the 4x. So one of the things that annoys me about like the precinct is that there's never any, there never seems to be any consistency. Okay, so even though in this case, even though the CO may go tell special teams on the 4x that I want you looking after addressing this, the day tour may come in and the day tour is like doing their own thing, So we need to get consistency in here, and I think again this is where competency comes in. And just because you took the test and are now the CO doesn't mean you're not an idiot, okay? And we need competency there, and there needs to be that guy that sets consistent policy between tours, so that like even if I address the problem doesn't come up again on a different tour, And because that continues, you're not really solving the problem,
Yeah, well, that falls on leadership. You're absolutely right. But that falls on the leadership. That's definitely not on the troops, that they're not in unison. I agree. It's just like you go to a precinct and anywhere in New York City in the NYPD, you ask someone a question and you go to another cop and ask them a question, you're going to get a different answer. There's so many different ways to skin a cat. But that falls on leadership so that these platoons are on, walking in unison, so that they could stop these crimes that are happening right now, especially these meetups, especially right now with the manpower being so low. There should be an even harder push on social media and intel to get these guys before they actually have these meetups, right? To stop them, 2 days before, 3 days before. So I'm sure there's a lot of information on social media that they could actually address these groups. And what would, what would also help is anti-crime. Anti-crime is probably one of the biggest losses to the NYPD. Thank you so much, former Commissioner Dermot Shea. You should have disbanded a lot of other things before you disbanded anti-crime. Absolutely. Complete failure. That was probably one of the worst decisions ever made.
Dog295J, whatever. He says the problem is the CO and XO don't care about patrol, plain and simple. So I'm going to say, look, there's a lot of people that don't deserve to be commanding officers in the NYPD, and the diversity, equity, inclusion era of policing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of commanding officers and executive officers that I don't even think could tie their own shoes. And I'm not even exaggerating. They wouldn't know how to change a spool of paper in a printer, never mind run a command. However, there are a lot of I'm not kidding. Like I'm not even exaggerating. And like people think I'm exaggerating, and I'm not, dude. I'm not. Like couldn't figure out how to make a cup of coffee. Like I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
Like who? Like a lot of people, and I've named a lot of them on here. Some of them even made it to the top of the police department. But I'm not going to get into that today because that's not what I'm talking about. Because even if you have a competent guy that cares, and there are a lot of people that are competent and care, right? There are. They usually don't get to become commanding officer these days, but there are some, right? They're set up for failure, dude. They're set up for complete failure because you cannot fix the manpower in your command. You can't. And if you don't have the proper manpower in your command, there's nothing you could do. I'll just give you from a sergeant perspective, right? Sergeant perspective. I come out on patrol. I get out there. The day tour idiots telling me, we got 7 guys in the hospital. You know, I got the 1 sector out there. I get out and I start my tour with 3 cars and 2 of them are down. I have 1 car. I'm able to make another car because now I don't have a driver, and I take one of the guys that's the CO's pet that he says I can't touch, and I make him drive me, right? And now, so I have 2 cars, and I'm running out there. And it's 911 call after 911 call after 911 call. Am I able to focus on any criminal patterns that day? Absolutely not. Am I able to address any of the quality of life complaints that day? Absolutely not. Am I able to do any checkpoints? Absolutely not. What's my response going to be to a car takeover? I'm going to get to a car takeover. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to call for help, and I'm going to wait for 20 minutes for the next car to get off of their job. And probably my window is going to get smashed, and I'm not going to be able to do anything. And, you know, this happened consistently in the NYPD, and this is the danger of not staffing patrol properly. And I used to get, when I wasn't a patrol sergeant for a long time, maybe about 6 months, maybe. But I used to get reamed out every day by the XO because I would never do a checkpoint. He would tell me every day, John, you better do a checkpoint. And I would go, okay. And I would go out there. I'd say, yes, boss, no problem. Yes, sir. And I'd get out there and I have 1 car. I'm literally running 1 car. It's me and another car. I'm picking up jobs. We're going job to job to job to job. And when I do have active guys, when I do have 3-4 cars, we're running the whole night. I'd get back in the precinct. How come you didn't do a checkpoint? I would be like, do me a favor, go through the 911 calls. When did I have the opportunity to? I'm not taking a sector off patrol and leaving 1 or 2 cars out there. It's dangerous. I can't respond to the 911 calls. That is my priority, not the checkpoint. So there needs to be a larger focus on patrol. It's not that the CO and XO don't care about patrol. It's that regardless if they're competent or they're morons, they're set up for failure. So the competent guy may be able to make it look better and may be able to work better, and he might be able to do a lot more than the idiot does, but it doesn't mean that they don't care or it's totally, it all comes down to manpower. It really does. And when you have no manpower, this is what happens, is it all just falls on the investigative portion, which is a large portion of solving all of this. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there needs to be a multi-pronged approach to all crime and every crime. And there needs to be an approach on the ground, not just let's throw it to the squad, let's throw it to intel, let's throw it to these guys. So that's why I'm a proponent of the checkpoints, you know, and done properly. I'm not a fan of, you know, your wife goes out to dinner and has a glass of wine and she blows 0.2 and she's getting locked up. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about grandma rolling through and she has some minor infraction on her car. I don't really care about those things. That's not affecting public safety. I'm talking about actually trying to provide public safety, getting guns, drugs, and dangerous vehicles off the street and drunk drivers off the street. So this comes out. There's a bunch of different flyers that have been put out from the 104th. This is from DCPI. The New York City Police Department is asking for the public's assistance in identifying the 8 individuals and vehicles depicted in the attached media in connection with a reckless endangerment incident that occurred within the confines of the 104th precinct. Details are as follows. It was reported to police that on Saturday, April 18th, at approximately 01:48 hours in the vicinity of Elliott Avenue and 69th Street, multiple unidentified individuals were reportedly drag racing. Upon arrival, officers observed a blue car driving recklessly in a circular motion, along with a silver BMW X3 occupied by 3 unidentified male individuals, and a white BMW occupied by 2 males and 1 female. Furthermore, the unidentified male individuals jumped onto the hood of a marked NYPD vehicle, causing damage and cracking the windshield, and then fled in a black Nissan to parts unknown. No injuries were reported as a result of these incidents. Media depicting the 8 individuals and 4 vehicles is attached. Anyone with information is asked to call NYPD Crime Stoppers hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS.
Yeah. Once again, let's give it all to the squad, you know? Yeah. It's just more work for the squad guys, you know, as if their plate isn't already full of stuff, you know?
You know what's to me is frustrating, and I can only imagine cops must be frozen right now. If you remember back when we were working the commands in the NYPD, there were some guys that would that were doing such an awesome job, and they wanted to try to get to a unit, and they couldn't get their application signed by the commanding officers because the commanding officers were afraid to lose personnel because personnel wouldn't give them a body to replace that, which was such a failure in the system in the NYPD. So I can only imagine now with such low manpower, what kind of incentive do these cops have to go out there to do this intrusive police work anyway? How do you incentivize them right now? They're probably frozen. They probably can't even leave these precincts anyway. I remember when Manpower was much better than it is now, and commanding officers would not sign in applications because they wouldn't get a body to replace them, from personnel. The system is completely antiquated, and it definitely needs to be revamped. But right now, with the manpower that is right now, I'm sure these cops are frozen and probably can't go anywhere. If you're active on the job, let us know. I'm sure right now, no one's making any movements unless you got the right phone call. You got the right connections. You're part of tier 1 and tier 2. Far different. But if you're general population, I don't think you're going anywhere.
No, I mean, that is the root cause of the problem. It always stems back to manpower and competency. That is the root cause, and then, if you go further onto this and you go back to these other city council hearings and these other press conference, and anytime this has ever got brought up, and even Shell had alluded to it too. It's like, oh, we want a plan. Everybody's got to submit their plan. Everybody, this is a citywide problem. The plan should come down from one police plaza, and this is what the plan is. And everybody from the patrol cop all the way up to the police commissioner should know what the plan is and what you do when there's a street takeover. And that is not there because it's so inconsistent. Oh, I'm waiting for the borough to address it. No. This isn't what the borough's going to do. You're going to tell me your problem locations, and I'm going to tell you what you're going to do at those problem locations. And you're going to tell me what you've done at those problem locations, and I'm going to tell you where you messed up at these problem locations. Like and that's the thing is like, and even CompStat is lost sometimes because you're bringing in all these boroughs separately, and there needs to be an overall plan to address this. Specifically, as crimes arise in the city, there should be whole of NYPD approach on these stats, and it's just borough concerned with all of the bureau heads, the boroughs and the bureau heads, all in the same CompStat, all coming up with solutions to address problems like this. This is going to be a big problem this summer, like huge, and no one's prepared for it. And there's going to be a lot of gang violence that's going to result out of this. There's going to be a lot of people that die. There's going to be a lot of unnecessary traffic deaths that's going to refer out of this. And Mondani and Tish do not appear to be competent enough to understand this or be ready to get in front of this. And it's scary to watch, dude. It's scary to watch.
Well, does a borough commander ever get grilled at CompStat or some CompStat-like meeting?
Nope.
Because we've talked about this before with all the stuff happening on Roosevelt Avenue in Queens North. And how come the nobody ever grills the borough chief? Like what are you doing here? Now we know the COs probably, you need a lot of resources for that. Okay. Resources that in a lot of ways are beyond the capabilities of the precinct. For instance, you need a long-term investigation to find out who are running these brothels, But in that case, those resources need to come from the borough, and the borough chief needs to initiate them. So, we've asked before, like, where's the borough chiefs in all this? How come when what happened in Marlboro, Queens, nobody called the borough chief to the nobody put their feet to the fire and tell them, why didn't you do your job making sure the precinct is staffed? We know what the CO did wrong, but what did you do wrong? It seems like nobody, like once you're a borough chief, it's like to me, and that's crazy because you're gonna, we're gonna question the CO, and the CO may even get bounced if he has a bad comp stat, but nothing happens to the borough chief. Nobody asked the borough chief, did you get them the resources they need? Did you do all you could have done to help the CO? Or did you yourself, when you noticed the CO was incompetent, did you remove the CO? Did you tell them to shape up?
I often get a lot of pushback because of the statement that I say, and I'm going to continue to say it. I don't care. It's the reality. Every active chief of the NYPD right now is part of the problem. They're all complicit and they all need to go. And here's one small proof of evidence right now. Now, one active chief is telling the truth to the public that the manpower is completely diminished right now in the NYPD. Every one of them is moving in lockstep with Jessica Tisch and Michael Petrie and lying about the manpower. Every chief in the NYPD knows right now that their units and their bureaus and their boroughs are completely understaffed, undermanned, and doing the impossible right now. And now one of them is speaking up and saying, hey, we don't have enough people to do this job, and we don't even have the right people to do this job properly. Not one of them has said anything. You can't tell me that they're boxed into just their area. They know exactly if you are in charge of a specific bureau, there's no way that you have the manpower in your bureau or borough to do the job. And especially if anyone should be stomping their feet hard right now, it should be the chief of detectives. Because unfortunately, it used to be that the patrol was the backbone of the job and everything would fall onto patrol. But actually, it seems to me that everything is now falling onto the detectives. The detectives are now responsible for everything. Instead of doing intrusive police work, we now prevent crime by having the detectives go out and investigate and make apprehensions. It's the most ridiculous thing right now. We put so much burden on these detectives right now. They're overworked. They can't handle their cases. And yet these guys have to go out and do investigations for criminal mischief. Well, maybe if we had the proper amount of cops out there and we had good leadership and good deployment, these detectives wouldn't have to do a follow-up for criminal mischief. And unfortunately, too much work has been put on them. Yeah, Smith says Joe Kenny's a joke. Absolutely. Absolutely. If I was a chief of detectives right now, I'd say enough. Enough is enough. My detectives are not responsible for everything. The new prevention now is by the detectives going out and do a follow-up. And the patrol can't even be the backbone anymore because there's barely anybody even doing the job.
All right. Anything else on these takeovers? Look, I think, you're going to get more lip service this summer. And I think this is going to be an issue that's going to persist because there's been no competent strategy put in place. And the only one that you kind of hear from is Shell. And you heard a little bit about what he did. And again, a lot of what he said was highly misrepresented and a lot of what he did was reckless and dangerous as well. But there are a lot of good parts of the plan that he had in place. And I think right now is just, you're just going to continue to get lip service and media press conferences after this, and then a little bit more deployment there, afterwards. The next day, you're going to see a fixed post of a RMP, like who's coming back that day during the day. So you're going to see just a lot of incompetent responses to all this stuff. But this is a big problem. I don't think that there is going to be anything put in place to address this. You guys got anything else on this before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to say the other thing that they could do, because the manpower is so low, is you do a coordinated effort with the ATF, DEA, and also the feds as far as these car meetups, because I'm sure these cars are involved in maybe some different criminal rings. Maybe that's the only other thing they could do with the manpower being low is just a coordination with the feds, which include ATF, DEA, and the FBI itself.
Well, I don't even think we need to go that far. But if you could get them, that'd be great. I'm not even sure if they have the resources to do that now with all with the ICE surge and all that stuff going on. But reach out to the state, get some of the state police or the state troopers down here and see what they can do in this,
So you guys don't think that the fix a call the next day is going to solve this?
Yeah.
Well, what was that thing called again? The Skywatch. Put the Skywatch there. That'll do it. the cop in the box in the air.
There's some organization like the Juniper Civic Association. I guess they're out in Maspeth, and they tweeted this photo and they said, "This is the equivalent of closing the barn door after the horse already escaped."
That's great. Yeah, those fixes are absolutely useless. They do not. But I think, Marlon, I get what you're saying. I think a coordinated effort with the feds would help. I'm sure there's some type of criminal rings going on here, especially ATF. I'm sure there's a lot of firearms going on here. I think ATF would be a great, or at least with the ATF, just as we saw, we had on 10-4 Tab, an awesome show. Louis Fellows, who was an undercover with ATF. If they could get some undercover ATF agents at these car meetups, I think that would be a big help.
But well, yeah, that should have been happened a while ago. Intel has UCs as well. Why you should have some UCs embedded in these car clubs? You know, that should have happened yesterday. Okay, it's not that complicated, you know.
Well, the reason why I say also get the feds involved is I'm putting my money on it. I think a lot of these guys are homegrown. They're from Queens. They're from the Bronx and part of these car racing meetups. But I do think there are paid agitators and actors that are probably at these car meetups in New York, and they're probably at these car meetups in Miami, and they're probably at these car meetups in LA.
You know, another point, just last point on it from me, and another thing for you young cops. I know that some of you guys hang out with these kids and know these kids, and probably more than likely, some of you are even attending these meetups. And if you do, and I hear you are, we're 100% going to be calling for you to be terminated on here. 100%. I'm just letting you know, so don't be shocked. You know, don't be shocked if that happens, because more than likely there are NYPD cops actually involved in this as well. And even if they're not involved, they know who is. But don't be an idiot. Don't be stupid. Don't be trying to be cool, because again, this is a social media, social trend, youth trend. Obviously, it's very popular. You see the amount of people that are here. You know, we'd be stupid to think that, you know, that there wasn't by
the key says the code is finest unfiltered $6.99, not finest $6.99. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we've been putting the word out there. We'll fix it. The code is finest unfiltered $6.99. Get it now. It's $8.50. That's a big discount. The discount is not just cost. This is your investment. This is your investment for life. So shout out to the key. The key wants your success, and they're putting $150 discount into you. I think that's when you really break it down, what it is per class, it's nothing. You spend more money in a cup of coffee. So if you don't have the money out right now, put it on your credit card. It's damn worth it. Put it on your credit card, take the class, get promoted. And if you don't want that promotion, you still take the class and get yourself more knowledgeable and know this job much better. So shout out to the key. Thank you for what you're doing. And George, shout out to you. And George, slow it down with all these shirtless videos, man. I'm like, damn, I gotta get some peptides here. But yeah, looking good, brother. Shout out to you, man.
Yeah, finance unfiltered $6.99. I'll leave it running at the bottom. Apologize about that, people. So, but honestly, you guys should have did this 2 weeks ago.
So, but John, don't you think it's sad, man, that you have to tell people that are NYPD cops don't? It's crazy that we got to that point.
I mean, it just is what it is. It's the new era, dude. It's the new era. All these cops think they're social media influencers. There's that whole other new trend, and you know, some of the dudes aren't bad guys. Like you got the guy Moolah that always goes up. You got to want to say something positive for the kids. I got no issue with you guys saying something positive for the kids, but there's these other like girls that keep doing these videos with these like 3 or 4 guys, and like the guy goes up and he shares a snack with the cop, and they like. It's no different than doing the dancing with the cop that girl got in trouble for. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, even though the kids aren't bad kids, I'm not saying that they're bad guys or anything. What are you doing? This dude's generating content off of you. You look like an idiot. You're at work. Be like, no, I'm sorry. I can't partake in this. I can't. I apologize. No. You're in the city. People are going to come up to you and offer you a lot of different things. You really shouldn't get involved with it. Now, off duty, you know, somebody wants you to shoot a movie or something, then you do it, you know, act in a play, whatever. You know what I mean? Then you take that number and you deal with it off duty, but you don't in uniform. I'm going to share a snack with this guy and I'm going to do. You look like idiots. Honestly, you look like idiots. It's the stupidest thing, man. I'm not saying it's a big deal. I'm not saying it's corruption. I'm not saying you guys are making any money for it. One guy keeps offering them like $1,000. Same guy that wants to share snacks with everyone. He offers them $1,000 if they could beat him in like a push-up contest or whatever. And smartly, none of them take the money. But it's just a point. Like, you shouldn't even be getting involved in it. You know what I mean? Like, look, I'm at work. I don't want to deal with this. You know, I don't want to be blasted. They got a lot of views, and you really don't need the attention. You're just drawing attention to yourself. And God forbid there's a crime at that moment. Are you in the right place to respond to that? What's the delay going to be? You know, smarten up. They really need to smarten up. There's too much of the social media culture in the NYPD currently.
Yeah, but the problem also is, sorry, Marlon, I know we cut you off, I apologize, but the problem is the NYPD leadership, and I said this for almost 4 years, that to be a good commanding officer and be effective, one of the things that's looked at is your social media page. Not even just your crime fighting strategies. These guys battle with each other in their social media pages, and they pass it on to their cops, right? The cops, if they do something good, they're told, oh, go take a picture, put that on social media. They have the neighbor coordination officers, put it on social media. They have the community affairs. So that is part of the culture now of the NYPD, and that's what's pushed. So they think that's part of what they're supposed to do. So I get it, but I don't blame them. I blame the leadership.
Yeah, you remember that's part of the job. That's part of what the job is promoted, you know. And so what you're seeing is cops who've grown up in that, you know, that version of the job, who, you know, thinks that's community policing, you know. That you shouldn't draw the line somewhere, you know. And also these are kids that grew up with social media, so both of these have contributed to that happening now, you know. Instead of cops saying, you know, drawing the line at some point. Yeah, it's fine if you ask me a question about kids staying in school or whatnot, but you know, at a certain point, doing push-ups with you, doing dancing with you, doing all that stupid shit is it looks, you know, you don't look like a serious professional, you know, law enforcement officer out there when you're doing all this nonsense. But again, the job created that culture themselves. So.
Yeah, 100%. So then this came out, right? And that Sergeant Eric Duran was actually freed on $300,000 bail. Now he's free while awaiting his appeal. So it doesn't mean his case is dropped. And you know, one, I don't know, like, if we're gonna let the guy out pending appeal, I really don't know why it needs to be this high amount, $300,000. It should have been more like $100,000, something that people that are traditionally charged with negligent manslaughter receive. I don't know why he has a higher bail. When you look at bail for individuals, what they look at is if you're a flight risk, meaning are you going to take off the country? Sergeant Duran is. They look at your prior criminal history. Sergeant Duran has none. You know, they look at, are you a threat to the public? He obviously is not. And so there was no reason for it to be this high. But again, I'm gonna blast the Sergeant Benevolent Association one more time, because I don't think you guys understand what's happening here. And I didn't actually understand it when we did the last episode. But reading further into it and getting a little insight, you know, one, you're part of a union. So your union should not only fund your legal defense, but they should also fund your appeal. So the Sergeants Benevolent Association obviously decided that they were not going to fund the appeal. Okay? That's a big problem. And then the Sergeant Benevolent Association started promoting a fundraiser, which I thought, and silly me, I thought was a fundraiser from the Sergeant Benevolent Association. And it's not. So not only did they not fund the appeal, they're not even fundraising for Sergeant Duran's appeal. They're having a national organization fundraise for Sergeant Duran's appeal. You know, and I said that, you know, it feels like his family's being left out in the cold, and the SBA's language on promoting this fundraiser is, this is for Eric's family. Are you saying indirectly? Because it certainly isn't directly. Are you saying indirectly because if we win the appeal, Eric will be home free? Yeah, that may be true. Indirectly. But certainly directly is not for Eric's family. I don't know if you guys remember. You remember Hugh? I know you guys do, but I'm talking about the people in the audience. Case of Hugh Barry. Hugh Barry had his back against the wall, right? He shot a female who was charging him with a bat. The delegate ran to the Rodman's Neck range and took targets out that showed a bald male that looked like me with a baseball bat like this. And basically there was shoot, don't shoot. They would flip the targets, right? So one target would be a guy hands up. Obviously you wouldn't shoot, right? And they'd go on 3, shoot. They'd flip the target. If it was this, you shot. We took a use of force test where it said shoot or don't shoot. Man charges you with a bat. You shoot, right? If you didn't pass that test, you would go out there. So the SBA funded that entire legal case. They funded the entire legal case for Hugh Barry. Also, if you remember, they also did a fundraiser for Sergeant Hugh Barry. That fundraiser was for Sergeant Hugh Barry, his wife, and his children. Was not for his legal defense. Right? The job said at the time to the SBA, you can't do that. And the SBA president at the time, Ed Mullins, you know what he said? Go fuck yourself. My guy is losing his career because of you, because of your cowardice. And you don't want me to be able to fundraise? Well, how is this guy supposed to eat, live, pay his bills? He's going to lose his house. His kids are going to lose his house. And what the job did was they went over to the range and they took all of those targets out. So that they could go to court and tell everyone, yeah, no, we never trained anyone to shoot anybody with a bat. They went and took and removed that target off all the ranges and removed it out of the training so that they could lie and go on the stand and say, yeah, no, we don't train our officers to do that, which is factually incorrect. So that's my problem with the representation today in all of the unions is you don't have that strong representation. So again, all you guys that were fundraising for Sergeant Durand, it should have been going to his family and not to some national organization. I personally think that, whatever, man. I think that every member of the NYPD should be up in arms, no more so than every member of the SBA. I think it's pathetic what it turned into.
Well, I mean, you're right, but I mean, even you guys who are in the chat right now, how many of you know what the problem is? How many of you go to your union meetings? How many of you tell your delegate, I don't like this, or call the headquarters, union headquarters, and say, I don't like this. We need, you need to speak up about this. Look, there's no talk. A couple of years ago, they forced you to take something that you didn't want to do. And, there's no talk about that still, And how many of you actually called the union and said, what are you doing about this? What about my health insurance? Well, shouldn't I get some sort of guarantees now? So, it's, none of this surprises me anymore. The unions aren't going to go the extra mile because they know, so what? What are you guys, you cops, you guys who are still active, are you going to do anything about it? Or you're not even going to come to your union meetings. Okay. So what am I going to speak up for? What? Why am I going to go the extra mile for?
Well, in the chat here, we got Dog29J51 says, you guys want people to take the test and take the class. And the SBA is far worse than the DEA and PBA. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Listen, you can't depend on your career on the union. What we're saying is what needs to be in place to help you. God forbid you are in a pickle. But in order to make lieutenant, which is the touchdown rank in the NYPD, anything after that is gravy, and that's lieutenant. And the only way to make lieutenant is by being a sergeant. So I think that's kind of silly what you're saying. Yeah, of course we want you to take the test. We want you to do well in your career and not depend on the union. But God forbid you are in a pickle. We want to make sure that everything's in place so you do have a support system from the union. And that means funds, God forbid. And unfortunately, if you're out there doing intrusive police work, also if you're in a position of leadership, you could be held liable right now. And not just for potential civil liability, but prosecution and incarceration. So while I understand what you're saying, dog, but the bottom line is the union is not going to give you the pension that you need. You need to move up in your career if possible, unless you're going to make detective first grade, but you need some real good connections for that. And if you don't have those connections, you have to make your own career, and that's by passing those tests. So take the key, find us on Unfiltered $6.99. That's the way to go. John.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous statement. First of all, you have to be a sergeant to become a lieutenant, and you got to be a sergeant before you become a captain or before you become a chief. So you're not going to get into the ranks of leadership because the union sucks. Oh, because the PBA is better, according to who? The LBA is better, according to who? You? I don't think they're better. I think they're exactly the same. I don't think there are better unions or not. Absolutely not. Your union's not keeping you safe today. The unions are really they're about a generation from being gone or they're going to have to totally revamp them. So I don't know what you're talking about by that. Absolutely insanity. I would, first of all, the one thing that I tell everyone, they ask me if I should still take the job. I say yes, and I say study, and I tell everybody study. Give yourself the option. Study. Why? Because you're going to make more money, and it's a lot less assholes that could tell you what to do. So absolutely study. I don't care who you are, where you are, what you're doing. If you have runway on this job, you study, and when that test comes or your list number comes, you take the promotion. If you don't have a long runway left, you're leaving next year, then yeah, maybe you don't take the promotion. But at least you gave yourself the option. You know, so I don't even know what that comment means. Absolutely. You should always be studying. If I was on the test, I'd still be studying. I'd be definitely a captain at this point anyway. But there was not one test, and people are like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're gonna study? You're crazy." I'm like, "All right, I'm crazy, but I'm gonna keep studying." You know, I funded my own raise. I never needed SDS. I never needed LSA because I was always going my own route anyway. I never cared about any of that shit. So it didn't matter. People were telling me I was crazy when I was a sergeant in BMS. What are you going to take that rank for? I was like, because I want to go to the next rank. I want to be a captain. I want to be a commanding officer. Why wouldn't I do that? Because I have a good job now? Yeah, the CO is cool now. Tomorrow he could be an asshole. CO loves me now. Tomorrow he could hate me.
Yeah, right? Same thing that was told to me. You know, I got special assignment as a lieutenant. Everybody said, "Oh, stay there. Why do you want to make captain?" I said, "No, you got to get promoted. You got for the short term. Yes, special assignment is better, and lieutenant's a great rank, but these things are temporary. You know, when you're comfortable, that comfortableness can be taken away real quick. Something can happen. The job changes. Right? You could have zone run 9, remove SRG if you're an SRG. Something can happen. Something gets changed. So you have to keep getting promoted. That's the goal. And longevity-wise, it is better to get promoted. You'll have a better pension in the long run, and it's more money in the long run. Longevity, yeah. Of course, as a lieutenant up front with overtime, it's great. But think about that with overtime, right? That's a lot of time that you give up, and time is worth money, right? Time that you give up with your family to me is a lot of money. If you're a captain and you can make the same money or a little less than a lieutenant who's going out doing an extra 40, 50 hours a week. I mean, think about it, right? Your kids don't remember how much you were working. They just remember how much you were home or not, and you got to spend time with them. So I think time is money also. So, yeah, get promoted. There's no reason to keep stopping. If you could get promoted, the test is in front of you, you can get promoted. And the key will teach you how to do it. So, yeah, hit it up.
Yeah, and stay strained up gives the best message of all. Guys, do you really want idiots like Professor Juju being your boss? Take the key.
Speaking of, Juju is in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Juju is very insecure. I made a comment about George Misford. Yeah, he looks good, brother. And he made a comment with a rainbow. I don't know, Juju. Apparently, you have some real insecurities, man. If you can't make a comment about another man or something, maybe there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. You don't want some of you got 25 collars the last 2 months alone. Okay. Now Levon Harley and Richie Taylor are all your bosses, are all your chiefs, right? Do you want the next guy who has 2 collars to be a chief, to be a boss? So follow that voice again and take the test. And, don't let these idiots be your boss.
There'll always be an asshole above you, but you know what? You just minimize how many assholes there are. There'll always be one, right?
Yeah.
No matter, even in life, if you're retired, if you're in a business, there's always some asshole, but try to minimize how many assholes there are. Get promoted.
Joe says, John studied so much just for him to not be a captain. I'll laugh my ass off. I mean, look, Joe, it is what it is, And you know what? And a lot of the captains out there and a lot of the inspectors and the chiefs, they know I would have been better than they were. So it's all good, my friend. Sometimes life doesn't work out that way, and I don't regret 1 second studying for any of that stuff. I don't regret 1 second getting promoted from any of it. So I don't care.
John, be careful. Joe has 14% body fat, and he'll threaten to meet you in Manhattan. So be careful.
In the meat packing, I'll be there all summer, Joe. We can meet up. All right.
Be careful.
I'll be there all summer. You buy the drinks, all right? You buy dinner. All right. So we talk about representation, union representation, right? The governor race is coming up. Here's Bruce Blakeman. Here's what he's saying. And none of the unions have bid on this. I mean, and I personally don't think any of these unions should be acting independently when it comes to police use of force anyway. They should all be a one united front. Here's Bruce Blakeman on the case of Sergeant Eric Duran.
1201 on January 1st of 2027, I will pardon Sergeant Eric Duran. Sergeant Duran didn't intend to kill him. He didn't take his weapon out and shoot him. He was trying to slow him down. He had no intent to use lethal force. It was a bad circumstance, but let's put the fault where it is. Eric Dupre, who was somebody that was out on an open charge of felonious assault, someone who had just been in the middle of an undercover drug deal. We don't celebrate Eric Dupre's death, but at the same time, we don't punish Sergeant Duran for just doing his job. 1201 on.
I mean, how are they not on top of this? How are they not even eating off of this message? No, we're doing everything in the background. Those guys just don't see what we're doing in the background. We know what you're doing in the background. And it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with Sergeant Duran or any other rank and member file of your membership. None.
You know what they're doing, John? They're on the phone with Kathy Holcomb right now. Kathy, could you say the same thing so we could vote for you? So we can endorse you. Yeah, come on, Kathy, please.
Yeah, Hunter. He says Blakeman is. Blakeman is suspect. Okay, I hear what he's saying. He wants to do, but that means you got to run an energetic campaign to actually win, and not just campaign for campaign's sake because they need someone to run. Okay, so you got to win first. All right. And also what he plans to do with like those cameras and the plate readers on the border of Nassau and Queens is also very highly suspect too, because as I live on the border and I do everything in basically Long Island. And so I'm very suspicious of why they want that stuff on the border. I think that'll eventually dovetail into some sort of a toll, if you want to cross over into Nassau and do shopping. So I think that's suspect, but I hear what he wants to do, but you got to win first, Bruce.
I'm happy. I'm happy this is his message. I'm curious why it is his message, because he's like anti-Second Amendment. It's kind of ironic, but either way, I'm not saying the unions have to endorse him, but I agree with John. They have to get in front of this and use that message as the same platform. That, hey, we will endorse candidates that will pardon former Sergeant, Eric Duran. So again, Sergeant Eric Duran has my full support. I think he did his job. He did his job at the hands of leadership. Keep in mind, when he did his job, John Schell that put out that message about what needs to be done out there. John Schell was the chief of department at the time when Sergeant Eric Duran did his job under the leadership of John Shell, and John Shell's message was no one's getting away. So he did his job. He should be getting the support. So John Shell, I hope you support Eric Duran because his actions were a reflection of your message.
Yeah, and just for the record, I don't think that Bruce Blakeman's anti-2A. I mean, he has some bad takes on things, and I definitely don't agree with a lot of stuff he's done. But you know, he is he the best candidate? No. Is he the worst candidate? No. Is he better than Kathy Hochul? 1,000%. And the bottom line is this. The bottom line is I don't care what chance he has to win. He's putting that messaging out there and no one's biting on it. You have a candidate running for governor who has a large base and a large following. There is no reason the NYPD union should not be eating off of this, and there shouldn't be momentum behind his message other than the fact that they're already in the tank for Kathy Hochul. That is it, you know. And I totally get it. Is he running a great campaign? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Any Republicans? No, I don't think so. You know the Republicans that are doing good? Nicole Maliotakis and Mike Lawler. You know why? Because they're the furthest thing from Republicans. They vote with Democrats nearly every single time. So, you know, it's like New York is really bad. New York's really bad because of the Republican Party and the Conservative Party in New York. They don't run elections to win. They run elections to fundraise. There is a big difference between all that stuff. What was the other thing? The other thing is another video came out. The full video. I don't know where it is. I don't have it up. I don't have it ready. I was looking for it, but video came out from the liquor store. We'll probably bring it to you on Friday or maybe even possibly Wednesday. And we'll break that video down further. But you clearly see they don't walk up and just start punching this guy in the face like what was being suggested. It wasn't extrajudicial punishment, which is the new word that I guess someone found in the dictionary the other day that's now being used. And, you know, and then there's another use of force video that came out. And, yeah, we'll talk about that, I think, more on Friday. You know, I don't think what happened to Eric?
No, he went off stage for a quick second.
Yeah. There's another use of force video that's coming out. We'll probably go out on that on Friday and break it down. But I just think, you know, I think it's a really sad state of affairs, what's happened. I think that, you know, you watch somebody that was on this network really go from, you know, from one extreme to the next. You were a MAGA cop, and now you're a BLM advocate. You know, it's literally he went from competing with all of us consistently, clout chasing consistently, running behind the scenes, talking smack about all of us, trying his best to keep us down the entire time. And now he's literally like he's competing with Cop Watch. That's what he's doing. He's competing with Cop Watch. I think it's a sad state of affairs. I think what he's doing is really wrong. And if you guys watch it, what else did you learn about the incident that happened in Brooklyn? Who took the case? Who's suing the New York City Police Department in New York City? Oh, that's right. Eric Sanders is, right? Right. And that's what we were telling you. What did we tell you on the last episode? Wonder who's going to be suing New York City in the NYPD. Oh, wow. It just happens to be Sal's attorney that is consistently in the comments controlling the narrative. Wow, it just happens to be. So weird. And wow, Sal's like, you know, he's sitting there saying that he doesn't give you guys narrow-minded points of view, and we're narrow-minded on this episode. We're narrow-minded. You have an attorney who's suing New York City, controlling what you and that other little skinny dweeb is saying on your show. And you're going to say we're narrow-minded? You're literally driving narratives and pushing narratives, and you don't know what you're talking about. You're changing facts, and you're trying to portray things. It's bad in one situation, it's good in another situation, and there's zero consistency in your message. Zero.
Yeah. How convenient that the show pushes a narrative and then the attorney picks up the case too. You know, it's very, very convenient. And again, guys, if you're just tuning in or you're just catching this snippet, Sal is no longer on the network, okay? And the reason why is as we've pointed out many times before, the show has become just a part of the standards firm, you know, or the part of the Guardian's media influence campaign. Okay, and that's not what we are. So he's now no longer on this network. And not to make the show about Sal, but the point that we're trying to make here is that it's disheartening that you have cops who are helping to push a narrative that hurts cops. Okay, and we're not saying that you need to pick you need to be pro cop for everything. Okay, and that you can't be you can't be critical, right? We're saying you should have a measured response and you should not just run with outrage bait that's going to further drive the narrative that's going to hurt cops. Okay, you should be able to, if you're going to put up one of these outrage clickbaits, you should be able to break it down and let the public know where they're wrong and where the cops are wrong. Hey, rather than just to put out something that stirs the pot and gets more people that be angry and hate on cops, and then it's going to make your job even more difficult than it is, and it's going to hurt the community as well, because the community, as somebody who has a property in New York City, and I'm still here, and we all have family and again property in the city. We need the police to be doing their job, and we don't need police to feel that they're not going to get supported and that you're going to be wrong for everything, and thus I'm not going to be proactive and do my job. Okay, that doesn't help. And just to close out, I saw them put up this post by Sanders, and I gotta say, the fact that I'm starting, Sanders says many times that he was an active cop, and either he wasn't an active cop, or this is an example of him blatantly trying to steer the narrative a certain way, because you got to go back and read my post. It's just stupid, it's just stupid, and it's cherry picking. Okay. And the fact that I don't know why Sal reposted this, because any cop who's been a cop for a day or two knows that you're not charging the perp with resisting arrest by itself. Okay. All right. If you're a rookie out there who hasn't been told this yet, then I don't know if you need better supervisors, or you really need to find somebody who's experienced in that precinct to let you know that if you're charging resisting, you better hit them with OGA and throw in discount in there too. Okay. It's not going to be just resisting arrest. You need some other charge in there. And the fact that Sanders is promoting this it's just stupid, stupid.
Look, this is not about excuse me, it's not picking on Sal or Justice Jack, but I think it's just being honest and giving a fair assessment. We parted ways because this is the finest Unfiltered. We want to seek the truth and not have an agenda. And unfortunately right now, Sal and Eric and Justice Jack, they have an agenda, and that's a problem, right? I don't think they're being authentic and genuine. I don't even think they believe what they're saying, because it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't meet logic. Lily, I think you got the comment of the day. I think Lily hit it spot on right here. Lily Riggs, how you doing, Lily? Lily says, I don't think Sal ever wanted a lawsuit. Maybe, maybe not. I think he wanted clout. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think, Lily, you nailed it. I think that they're so desperate at this point. Not saying Eric wants clout. I think Eric Sanders, obviously, it's beneficial to him with his law firm. But I think for Sal and Jack, I think that it gets them clout. And even if they want to be in the space of crazy lefties getting behind them, it gets them clout. And I think that's what they're more concerned with. And that's where I have a problem with it. Because I believe everyone's entitled to their opinion. Now, while Sal and Jack have a lot of opposing opinions to what we have, or, even us, we have different opinions on certain things. The problem is that they have an agenda. And that's why we had to part ways, because we don't want an agenda here. The bottom line is to speak the truth and give fair assessments. Once you have an agenda, you're not Unfiltered anymore. And that's why we parted ways. It has nothing personal. Sal's entitled to his opinion. So is Jack. And so is Eric Sanders. But their opinion, right now, it's obvious, has an agenda. And they're being guided by the Guardian Association. They're being guided by people that have their own intentions. And it's all about malice. And that's where the problem is. And that's why we parted ways. So it's important to understand that it's a separate network. If they want to go out there and push leftist ideas and be just completely anti-cop and not give a fair assessment, then watch Sal's show. If you want if you want a fair assessment, you want to hear the truth about policing with experience, boots on the ground, all three of us have a lot of experience, then you watch this show. If you want to get both opinions and just compare them to each other, do your thing, knock yourself out. But that's the reality.
So Nin says, Lolo, yeah, like you guys don't have an agenda. Labro says, oh, so you guys don't have an agenda. You tell us, what's our agenda? Are we putting out videos and going, hey, what do you guys think? And then next thing you know, our attorney is suing the people. And then we're painting a narrative before the attorney drops the lawsuit. This is what it is. And if you watch this, and this isn't in the training, he literally said punching's not in the training. But like, and some of you believe him? You believe him that a closed fist strike is not in police training? You believe that? Let me know if you believe that, because if you believe that, I could sell you a lot of other things too, you know? And so that is exactly it. Opinions are fine. Disagreements are fine. We disagree with each other often. We have different takes about different scenarios, and we think that things should happen differently, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled to nuanced opinions. That is literally the foundation of the show. We've had Mondani on here. We've had Copwatch on here. We've invited every single person that's in opposition to us on here, including Eric Sanders, who was, and he didn't because he was too scared to come on here. At the time, he was saying, like, making these off-ended comments somehow that we should be arrested and we should be sued and we should be removed and all of this other garbage that he had to say.
Racist.
And that we were racist. And there's this total race-based conscience coming out of that show. And it's insane to me because it's coming out from two white guys and they're telling you that the 1.5 mile run is racist. If you keep hearing he's making these off-end comments about the 1.5 mile run, how is the 1.5 mile run racist? And if you remember, that's where it turned. That's where the relationship turned. He started talking about the 1.5 mile run, and we started to debunk that and say, how the hell is the 1.5 mile run racist? You're not just telling black men and women to run the 1.5 mile. Everyone runs the 1.5 mile. Are you trying to say that whites run the 1.5 mile better than blacks? What is the basis of this? What is the basis of saying it's racist? And again, I said, if you want to argue and say that it's unnecessary, I could have that argument. But we can't have the argument that it's racist because it clearly isn't. And that's clearly narrative driven. Why are you saying that it's racist, Eric? Because why would anyone say it's racist? So that I could sue. That's it. I mean, it's not hard. Like, you people don't listen. Like, you don't listen. And that's where the entire thing fractured and where the calls for us to be arrested and shut down came from.
I actually think it started with the when we started to debate about double dipping pensions. I think that's where everything went south. But
that was after.
That was after. Well, I think ultimately that was the tipping point, because we have every reason to believe, and he said it himself, Eric Sanders, that he had a relationship, a friendship with Juanita Holmes. And Juanita Holmes, obviously, we called out that she was double dipping on her pension. You're right. That was afterwards, but I think that was the tipping point that really broke the camel's back here. So there's no doubt about it. There's no agenda here. If you think we have an agenda, obviously you're not listening. And that goes to all the trolls that want to say we have an agenda. And if you think telling the truth is an agenda, well, then so be it. You're right. We do have an agenda. The agenda is to tell the truth from real perspective, real boots on the ground that did the job and did the job properly.
And LE2 says, 2 podcasts that love to promote the termination of police officers going against each other. So we've never promoted the termination of actual police officers on here other than dirty cops who were corrupt and deserve to go to jail. And there's still some of you in the department. You're probably one of them. And so, yeah, if you're one of those guys that was taking money, that was shaking down businesses, that was stepping on people's heads for no reason, yeah, you deserve to get terminated. Absolutely. But you see, the difference with this podcast and any other one is we're consistent in our messaging. We're consistent in what we say. It doesn't vary from whatever the profit motive is concerned behind it. So there's a lot different than that. So go F yourself, Ellie.
If you want to get policing advice from a 27-year-old kid that never did police work and never had a real job in his life, then that's the right network for you. Then that's a perspective you want. Someone who's never done any police work, then that's the right show. You should be watching it. Go ahead. I'm sure Jack will give you a lot of information on how to police in New York City, who's in Florida right now, who's never even walked the pulse his entire life. If that's what your opinion is, go ahead. He has a right to his opinion. But if you want authenticity, it's not coming from there.
Yeah, I don't see where you're coming from, Ellie. You know, if we did that, if we unreasonably did that, please point it out. Okay, all right. I listen. We approach topics with a measured, nuanced take. You know, we call out what the stupid shit that needs call out, and we praise the cops when cops need to be praised. We, again, like John and Eric says, it's not about pushing an agenda so our lawyer could now have a case. Okay, that's you watch Fox News and MSNBC for that bullshit. Okay.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's just amazing to me, dude. It's like the insanity. It's like, it really is crazy. And here's the thing, like, we built Sal. Sal's show sucked. We gave him Jack, right? Who was honestly was the terrible producer who sold himself to, I'm gonna help you guys do this, help you guys do that. And then he saw Sal as his meal ticket, and Sal saw, I could use Jack, and Jack ran over to him, and still the show sucked. And me, Eric, Marlon, we all like massaged it. Stop reading, stop doing this, start doing this, blah, 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 blah. And then it became palatable. And then once it became palatable, it became narrative driven. It was all, the mile and a half runs races. What? And, you know, you call out bad police work, but you don't know why it's bad. And you call out good police work, and you don't know why it's good. And then you have, when you want to talk about issues that come up in the community, ask Sal and Jack. What should they do about the street takeovers? What are they thoughts on the street takeovers? Oh, wait, they don't have any on that. Oh, wait, they don't have any on that. Oh, I wonder why. Oh, maybe they will after they listen to the show, and then they'll just regurgitate everything that we said today. Right? Maybe, because maybe if you listen to that, you listen to this show, and then you listen to Sal's show, you could hear all his points. Or maybe if you watch what we tweeted about an incident and then see what Sal tweeted about the incident hours later, you could see, you know. But clearly that show is driven, and I hear when he talks or he says anything, I hear his attorney, I hear Joel in the background. I don't hear any original thought coming out of Sal whatsoever. He's a fraud. He was obviously working behind the scenes against us this entire time, and that's it. So, you know, I could give two shits. You know, there was a fracture. It was I'm going to build off of you guys, and then I'm going to step on your heads, which is always why the Sal Greco show. Yeah. All right. It should not be named after him. It should be named the New York BLM chapter, because that's what it is.
You know what I think is hilarious, by the way? Juju has like formed an alliance with Sal right now. He keeps having Sal's back. Didn't Sal sue you, Juju? I'm pretty sure that you were the subject of this lawsuit. Now, somehow, Juju has teamed up with Sal. That's great. Good job. Juju says you're out of town. Yeah, I'm out of town, but I experienced New York. I walked the streets of New York as a cop. I grew up in New York City. So, Juju, what are you talking about? Juju, the only thing you know about New York City is that you teach at a school. That's all you know. What do you know about it? Didn't you grow up in, like, Bangladesh or something?
Yeah. Well, you know, Juju likes getting beaten up all day. You know, he gets beat up all day by women in academia, and he likes he likes taking it. Yeah. So,
yeah, he takes to the face.
Crazy 10-7 says Eric Sanders is just a retainer collector, not much of an attorney. You try and get a bunch of black candidates who failed to run, swindle them into paying retainers, and then they get nothing for it. I mean, look, and that's what's going on with Sal's case. Again, I'll be the first one to say Sal was wrongfully terminated. He should have been reinstated, or that case should have been settled years ago. What's happening? How much a retainer did you pay, Sal? What'd you get for it?
Yeah, I think who said that about the retainers? That's well said. I think that's a great assessment. Well said. I think that's spot on. Yeah, they'll take your money, sure, and those cases aren't going anywhere. And Sal actually made an argument the other day. Said it doesn't even make sense. He was talking about the cops fighting and talking about that you have to be in good shape and good cardio, but you don't need to do the mile and a half.
Yeah.
What? You heard that? I said that doesn't even make any sense. Isn't running part of cardio? Isn't that a cardiovascular exercise? I don't even understand the argument. But whatever.
Yeah, Juju. So we still like you, bro. Okay. We appreciate you here. We're not gonna sue you.
But throw some coffee and donuts, Juju. You're so cheap, man. Get all the space on the chat.
he needs to pay for that lawyer, Eric. You know.
Oh yeah. He's got to. Him and Sal somehow now they're in cahoots. I love it.
He's got to have a lawyer and retainer now that Sal sued him. You know. So.
Yeah. Now he'll get indemnified for that because that lawsuit's whatever. Anyway, all right, enough of that garbage. I think that's the last time we even bring them up, but it just had to be said. It had to be said. So please don't associate them with us. I don't care when Sal puts out a video. Don't tag us. Don't ask us. I don't really give a shit. He's not part of this network. He's a fraud. He's a phony. He's getting used. I don't want nothing to do with that kid anymore. I got nothing to say. He was wrongfully terminated, and he lost his shit, and he's getting abused by Sanders, who, in my opinion, is the team of Eric Adams. That's it.
My message. That's my message to Sal. Sal, they're going to turn on you too. They're going to turn on you, and one day they're going to say you're racist also. When they're done with you, right now you're useful to them. You have a purpose. But when that purpose runs out, they're going to say you're racist too. So, I don't wish any harm for you, but I just want you to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is going to be the last time we do, because unfortunately people still associate him with the network. So it might still take us a while before we finally get people to understand that he's not on the network. So
I'm not naming him no more. That's it. I'm done. That's it. It's not part of the network. Anyone that brings it up to me, I don't care what a hoe is doing who's getting pimped out by an attorney. I could give two shits. You want to turn tricks for someone, that's it.
Jack's the fluffer.
And Jack is pointless to even bring up. I don't even think he understands what's even happening. So it's pointless to even bring it up. He's just happy that he's on a show talking shit that he has no idea about. He's a police expert now. So he's another one. I'm not bringing their names up. That's why I put the tweet out I did yesterday. I just want everyone to know that me and him are not friends. I want nothing to do with that kid, nothing to do with any of them. I believe that he's full of shit. I believe he's pushing narratives. Prove me otherwise, because I've seen all of it, and that's it. And anyone that has a problem, you know where I live. I'll let you guys know when I'm in New York. I could give two shits, because a lot of people like to run their mouth and act like they're tough guys. I'm not a tough guy at all, but don't dare for 1 second think that I'm afraid of any of you, because you'll be sadly mistaken, because we'll get that shit on video.
What do you got, Marlon? What do you got, man? Let's hit sub. It's 2 hours and 47 minutes into. I think we hammered this out. I think we give a very fair assessment. I think New York City's in trouble right now. It's out of control. These meetups with these cars are really taking over. And the problem is not just an actual meetup. The problem is if they start to coordinate and these meetups become simultaneous, and you have one in Queens and one happen in Bronx and Staten Island and the Bronx, in Brooklyn at the same time, that could really cause a gridlock. And this is where the city could be in trouble. So please keep your eye on that. It's a lot more serious than I think people think about. I've had conversations with people. I think some people have said we're making it a bigger deal than what it is, and I think they're not really paying attention. I think this could be really put the city on gridlock. And again, to the chief of detectives in the NYPD, stop fighting for you guys, because they put way too much emphasis on the detectives and they're way overworked. It's just not fair. It's not fair. These guys are responsible for everything right now. Somehow the burden has fallen on the detectives. At one time, the detectives were able to do their job and have a specific focus, but I think everything has fallen on the detectives right now. So, and again, thank you to the chat. Thank you to everyone. We appreciate it. As always, great Monday. I think this show was another banger. I appreciate it. And listen, this is not an opportunity for us to throw stones at Sal or Jack, but we have to be honest and let's be realistic. The differences between us and Sal and them is they're saying shit about us all the time, but it's behind closed doors. The only difference is we're saying it out loud.
Yeah. I had a star on that post. Let me see. Boston Bob. I thought this was a good point. Well, Boston Bob, something else. If you talk to a lot of OGs who've done time, they actually want cops in their neighborhood. Okay, so something to keep in mind. When I was on patrol, I talked to like a lot of the older guys, and they said these young guys are like they don't care anymore, and these are guys who've already done time. And they know even these young kids are like out of hand. So I just saw this. I was watching a video of kids in Chicago who were just standing around, and they're pulling out like rifles and all sorts of guns on their person. And I just thought this comment was interesting, because like a lot of the older perps who've done time see these young kids as wild, and they want cops in the neighborhood too. Okay, so I just think we can't get lost in these old racist arguments. All that stuff is battles that are like 70 years old. Okay, and it has nothing to do with. We don't grow up in the civil rights now. These are battles that have happened years beyond our time, and we need to focus on the problems now. So get rid of that.
Look, the thing is that, you look at, and we didn't bring it up, and I honestly, we could discuss gang violence, but I don't want to really bring up that video because it's horrible. 15-year-old kid surrounded, beaten, and then shot and killed for absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason. And yet all of the outrage was about a guy resisting arrest that got punched in the face. Nothing about this kid, when that literally should have shut the entire city down. Should have shut the entire city down, and we should have been like, well, what are we doing to prevent gang violence? And, what we're doing to prevent gang violence is furthering it. We're furthering it, and we're coddling it, and it's all being on this racist push. And anytime we call out racism here, or we call out the nonsense of it, we're the bad guys. Like, we're racist, Marlon's and Uncle Tom, because we actually hone in on the issues that are happening, and we call out the nonsense. You're being told the gang database is racist. It does zero harm to anybody that's listed on it. Zero harm to it. It actually helps them when there is an incident like this 15-year-old boy being shot, anyone that's arrested as a result, and even if, say, everyone's gone when they get there and this poor young man's dead, the minute he's identified, they run his name in a gang database. They see if he was part of a gang, which one was his rival crews, so that they could go out there and deploy proper resources into these gang areas so that they could do some type of predictive policing where the next violent act is going to occur, and try to stop it before it occurs. Try to get these kids with firearms, get them off the street before we lose more life. And we're just getting doubled down. I know we were going to get off, but you guys just got to listen to this real quick. This is coming out. This is a professor. She teaches kids, a college professor. This is what she had to say about the gang database.
We must erase the database entirely. It must be abolished, especially as you watch the government put people who they claim are gang members onto planes and send them to, and just remove them. There is no safe database. There's no reforming this. A list that 30,000 officers can access on their phone must be abolished, particularly in this day and age with federal law enforcement moving in on our communities. We did make a statement too, part of affordability is being able to walk to school without having to go around 3 blocks. It's being able to go to school or your job without getting picked up by the police, held for several hours and briefed. Being on this database means that they are picking up people constantly and making their lives utterly unaffordable, and that's utterly racialized. So if he cares about affordability, the Gangs Coalition has taken the position. That's one more reason to erase the database. This is not a safe tool to be shared, nor is it a safe tool, or rather a weapon to be left in the hands of the NYPD. If someone has a criminal conviction, that information is available to them. Labeling people based on you posted rest in peace to my friend, or happy birthday to the other person, or you live in this building, is not a reason to tax that individual as they walk down the street, to stop them, to arrest them for littering or jaywalking or ticket them. These are the harms that happen all the time to people in the database. So affordability requires eliminating the database and investing in much less expensive alternatives that we'll hear more about.
Absolute insane. So she's worried about people. She's a CUNY law professor, by the way. That's a CUNY law professor who believes that the gang database needs to be removed so that Black kids could walk to school safely and not be in fear of the police. I mean, do we live on the same planet?
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what her relationship with her father is like, you know? I have this theory. You find me the rabid progressive who hates cops, and I'll tell you somebody who has like a terrible relationship with her father, you know? So they grow up hating men, hating authority, you know? These are the ones who want to get rid of masculinity in academia, you know? So it's all, you know, all the same people over and over again, you know? Nothing you do, nothing the police do will ever make them happy, because ultimately they're miserable in their own life, and they all have internal struggles that, you know, they need to get past before, you know, the rest of the world could do anything that'll make them happy.
And you know what's ironic about that? It's people like her, this complete feminist, that 911 is always a solution, right? They're the first people to call 911 to resolve the issues. You know, if people get a little excited, call 911. Same people that hate 911, they call 911. It's ironic. She definitely has some daddy issues. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's just insane. We didn't get called a racist enough today, so let's just do it real quick. There's a new NYPD committee to study racial disparities in street stops. So let's break it down for you real quick, right? Young 15-year-old black kid was just murdered in a predominantly black neighborhood by other black youth. Who should the NYPD, who do you think they're going to go out and target and try to stop and try to figure out who committed this crime and try to stop more of these crimes from happening? Let me tell you, it's going to be young black youth. Is that a racial disparity, or is that a criminal profile? You know, this is a joke of a city. We're being led by absolute morons. You're going to study the racial disparities in street stops while not studying the racial disparities in who's engaging in criminal behavior, because they're combined. It's all right. Let's study the racial disparities in criminal behavior, and then based upon that, the criminal behavior, who's committing the criminal acts. Shouldn't that be who the NYPD stop?
Yeah, should be. I mean, yeah. How do those neighborhoods benefit from this? You know, those same neighborhoods that you know, we talk about. You know, Trammell put up a great video where he was talking about the black on black crime, and how does this help those areas that are dealing with, you know, black teens killing each other? This doesn't help anybody, but it furthers the whole complex that benefits and eats off money from this and contracts and you know, this doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, they want to give you face value. I mean, if you look at stops in this city, there's no doubt about it. I don't have to look at the data right now. There are far more blacks stopped than whites, but there's also, let's be realistic, it's not racist. There's far more crimes committed and violent crimes committed by blacks than whites in New York City. It's just the reality of policing. And so if they want an actually effective policing profile, if they want an effective police apparatus, well, then you have to address where the crime is happening. What they should look into, and what they won't do, is where was that stop committed, or where was that stop actually performed, and what crimes were happening in that particular area, and what were the descriptions of those perpetrators in those areas. So that's the one thing they'll never tell you. They'll give you a number, right? It's very easy to skew those numbers, because if you go across the entire city of 5 boroughs and we compare stops in the 104 precinct to the stops in the 75 precinct, obviously there's going to be more blacks stopped. There's more crime in the 75 than there is in the 104, and there's more blacks. So if you look at that, there's going to be a disproportionate rate. But what they're not telling you is how many crimes were in the 75 that were violent in comparison to 104, and what were the descriptions of those perpetrators. I find it hard to believe that in the 75 precinct that there was a vast amount of robberies, and those descriptions were male whites. And if you believe they were male whites, pigs, if you're waiting for pigs to fly, good luck. It ain't happening.
Yeah, Nin says, now John is saying the stats should mean we can literally target people racially. And you think I should trust you as a law enforcement officer again? John, you hate freedom. So, Nin, let me explain this to you. When you go out into a predominantly black neighborhood, and you enforce the law, particularly minor crimes, in order to stop major crimes from happening and in order to stop gang violence from occurring, what's going to happen is those stops based upon probable cause, which are protected under the Constitution of the United States of America, that are legal, that the public wants, that the Black community wants, that every community wants, people that are committing crimes to get stopped and arrested by the police. What I'm saying is those numbers are going to be predominantly Black people. What you're suggesting is that we should have some equity, spread it out. Let's go target some Hasidic kids and sprinkle them in there. Get some Chinese people and sprinkle them in there so we could get equity in our crime statistics. I'm just telling you the reality. And you can't, what you're calling for is, you know what? We should just have more Black kids die because, we don't want the NYPD stopping Black kids. Nobody's staying to stop anybody based upon the color of their skin. You're just too thick to hear it, and your bias is so large today. It's not even funny, man. You are so race conscious, and you don't even understand you're hurting your own people because you can't see around it. It's a joke, dude. It's an absolute joke. That's why you won't come on here. That's why you won't debate, because you're a coward and you don't know what you're talking about. Your brain is clouded.
Well, Marlon, you're Black. You live in New York City. How many times a day are you stopped? 7, 8? How many times a day you stopped? Just curious. Yeah. In the past week, how many times were you stopped, Marlon? Did you make it to the store? Were you able to go to dry cleaning? Were you able to take care of stuff? Or you got stopped the whole day?
Well, apparently, I think Nin, it's 11:05, so Nin is he's off to produce his other show. So he doesn't care about us anymore. Yeah, but I think Nin should spend more time working on Sal and Frankie's case, okay, than wasting people's time on here and being a social media influencer rather than a lawyer.
But am I right, Marlon? You live in New York City. Yeah. Why are you not stopped all day? You're Black.
Yeah.
Right? No, you're not Black. You're not playing the Black game, so you're not Black. Sorry.
Well, it depends when I'm Black. I'm Black only when I tote the progressive narrative. When I don't, I'm not Black. But if I started repeating every talking point that Sanders says, then I'd be Black again. If I agreed with everything the Guardians wants, I'm Black again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a joke, dude. And like, that's the reality of it. Look, is the reality of being you're a male in any situation where there's gang culture and violence, is the reality that you could potentially be killed by the police for resisting arrest and that is a reality. It's a reality. It's not likely if you're smart, if you don't resist arrest, if you don't run around with firearms. I mean, that raises the likelihood of it. But the likelihood is you're going to be killed by another male Black in that neighborhood. That's the real reality. You think they're really afraid of the police? Or they afraid of the other kids in their neighborhood? What do you think their parents are afraid of? You think they're really afraid of the NYPD? Or are they really afraid of the other kids in their neighborhood? And we all know the answer. We all know the answer to that. And it's the same thing, it's the same thing. Hood Maya, Italians and Irish flipped on Blacks and ran to the police department to be accepted. That's not even accurate though, Hood Maya. It's not. Like the Irish came in here, they were treated like garbage and they needed work, and most of them were dock workers. And when they started actually doing municipal police forces, the Irish were the first here, so they brought them in. Then the Italians were not looked at as white. They didn't want them in. Eventually they got in. Same true for Black officers. Same's true for Asians. Same's true for a lot of other ethnicities, Muslims, right? And this has just been the way of it, So like I said, everyone in this country has really came here poor with nothing and rose out of it, So it is what it is, Like I said, I stay on reading New York City history. It's super interesting. I learned a lot. I suggest you guys check it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You talk about the history of the 5 points and just see. I mean, unfortunately, we often hear about the N-word being, a terrible derogatory name, but the Irish and both the Italians were referred to as that N-word. Specifically the Italians got it probably the worst. If you look at the amount of anti-Semitism the Italians received back then in comparison to now, oh my God, it's far worse. People talk about being decimated, and the Italians were treated terrible. And it really is a blight on history, especially in New York City.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
with that-
everyone was. Everyone was.
Yeah,
But
I'm saying,
every group.
Listen, I'm Jewish. To this day, there's still anti-Semitism, but there's always going to be, even if you're in a group, I guess you could say that is not particularly receives much opposition. I don't know which group that is. Oh, everyone receives some type of opposition, right? It's acceptable today, but even plenty of people, if you're gay, you're going to receive. There's still people out there that have some real qualms about being gay. They just can't accept it. They're uncomfortable. I think there's a little something. I think when people are uncomfortable with that, I think there's something about them. But it's stupid. It really is stupid. And I think the bottom line is what we're talking about today is giving the truth and not having agendas. And that's the reality. We can't negate the fact that, I don't know, I haven't looked it up in a long time, but in Wikipedia, even if you look at Wikipedia years ago, I don't know if it's still there, it said that male blacks have a 29% more likely chance of committing a violent crime than a male white. And it's not racist, it's just a reality. And I worked in housing, I can tell you this. Most of the people, they were happy to see the cops there. In public, yeah, they had to pretend and play the game, and a lot of them jumped on them and pretended to hate the cops. And I talked to a lot of those people behind closed doors, and they were happy to see the cops. And they just had to put on an act for survival. A lot of people that live in these communities that play the game of being black and act in a certain way, they do it because of survival. That's the reality. A lot of these kids, they don't want to be in a gang. They don't want to play this game. They have to survive, and I get it.
Yeah. All right, peoples. All right, let's get to the super chats. Who do we got? We got AC 2074, United States Marine Corps. He says, new hand rest vest should say, police, please stop, will not chase. Look, here's the thing, man. Unless there is a competent solution or NYPD policy changes, you're out of your mind to chase. Absolutely out of your mind to be an NYPD cop and chase. Because when something goes bad, and it will, young child gets run over, elderly person, disabled person, doesn't have to be your vehicle that's going to run them over. Is it an accident? Yeah, it could be the perp's vehicle. You're going to be the one held responsible. You're going to be the only one that's going to have to pay civilly and more than likely criminally. So I'm not getting involved in those chases. We told you guys, we've been telling you guys for 4 years now, do not get involved in these car chases. A lot of you didn't listen. A lot of you are facing indictments, lost your jobs already over it. And if you're going to double down and continue, it's not going to be me, then, I mean, it is what it is, man.
I just want to say, I didn't realize it at first with the first $100 for coffee and donuts. AC 207 USMC, shout out to you, brother. One of my best friends I served in Iraq with. I know who that is. So thank you so much, brother. Step to 5. Appreciate it. Good man right there.
All right. G2 training. Yeah, we're going to promote the key one more time on the way out. But he said, I guess I was saying finest $6.99 because my mushroom coffee didn't kick in yet. But the code is actually the finest unfiltered $6.99. Thanks for the heads up, George. Appreciate it.
Yep. Get the key.
GS Ventures $9.99. For a checkpoint, there is no officer discretion as to who gets stopped. You can stop a car outside of the pattern of the checkpoint as long as you observe an independent violation. Yeah.
Well, I think we squared away that debate.
Yeah. Eric, you are the case law guy. Look up checkpoints.
Good point. Yeah. Thank you for the coffee donuts. Appreciate it.
Vinny, come set up a smoker. John versus Eric. Smoker, John versus Eric. But again, that just leads on to the point, right? Is that like there's not a narrative control measure here, right? Like we all have different opinions. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. Doesn't matter. We welcome free debate. But when you don't want to debate and you're pushing narratives, that should tell you guys everything about who you're listening to.
I think we should have healthy debates. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're angry and want to fight with somebody. We have debates all the time. I think, sometimes John wins, sometimes I win. In the end, who cares? And the reality is we all learn from it and we educate each other. So it's good to have opposition. And there's no agenda. Like you said, we've been saying this for almost 4 years. When that camera rolls and we go live, I don't know what Marlon's going to say or what John's going to say. We don't even have that discussion. It's about as authentic as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even show up on camera until like 2 minutes before the show.
Yeah, sure.
2 minutes? Yeah, like 20
seconds. Marlon's mic is not working until 20 seconds after we're live. He's still fumbling trying to figure it out.
2 minutes? It's funny shit. But you know what? That one thing I will not debate over. One thing, and this goes for you guys and girls that are studying. I will not debate the patrol guide or an answer to a question without the patrol guide directly in front of me. I will not do that with anyone. Don't ever do that when you're studying. If some guy's like, no, it's this, do not listen to that idiot. Don't even have the conversation with them because you don't know and you might know, but this guy's confusing you or this girl's confusing you. Go right to the patrol guide. I think this is what it is. What do you think it is? Okay, let's go to the patrol guide. That's it. Like, do not have those debates with me. I refuse to. I'll debate people about anything. I would never debate anybody about patrol guide stuff because I'm like, I'm not having the argument. This is what I think it is. Let's go to the patrol guide. Sometimes I was right. Sometimes I was wrong. But I remembered that test day. And I don't want the last memory is this guy telling me the wrong thing or my memory of saying the wrong thing. Did you do that, Eric? Did you argue with people over patrol guide stuff while you were studying?
Oh yeah. But I mean, I listen. When I was studying, I knew the stuff verbatim. I still know it pretty good, but not like back then. And I told you too. I studied my whole career. I've always read the book. So when it came time to study, I was well prepared. I always read the book constantly. I wanted to know what was in that book, and I wanted to know the real deal. And that's why anytime. I think that's why I did well with the CCRB investigations. Anytime I went to an investigation, I knew what the allegations were. I corresponded to the patrol guide and real world. So I felt like I had a full circle analysis. Yeah, but you're right, man. You can't question what's black and white.
Yeah, and even when other guys were studying, if there was no test and like someone was studying for a sergeant test or they even just brought it up, I'd be like, no, get the patrol guide out here. Get the patrol guide out here. Because, I have people telling me, it's this, it's that. I'm like, get the patrol guide. Let's go. Let's get the patrol guide. So I used to carry a patrol guide with me, and then we'd go through it. Because,
the problem is, what's funny about that, John? And you probably experienced this too. Sometimes you get the patrol guide out, and then you read it to the guy. He's like, no, but that's not what it says. Like, no, it says it right here.
Yeah. But at least you defeat it. You know what I mean? At least you defeat it. And like, your memory fails you, right? Like I didn't study for 6 months. I might remember something incorrectly at this point, or something changed, or someone put something in my head that's not right, so real funny. So the Smith 72 says Sal Greco was a 0, needs to be humbled. That's ASAP.
You mean the Sal Greco?
The Sal Greco. Yeah. There's one thing I'll say is there's no humbling that guy. He speaks about himself in the third person. There's it's impossible to humble him. If you could do that, you should be a psychiatrist.
Look at Juju's face.
His head is like this big. It's like, I don't even know how that guy walks through a door. So there's zero humbling. So don't even try. Don't bother. And then Eric, your boy again, AC 2074, United States Marine Corps, $100. He says, always keep your hands in the vest so you're not threatening, and always say pretty please.
That's right, brother. Shout out to you, man.
The best. That's the best tactic. All right, yeah. So that's it. Appreciate everybody for being here. Like we said, Key, sergeant promotion class, it's definitely coming. I heard from a lot of people. It's all good to go. So the class is going to start May 2nd. Test is going to be February of 27. So test is going to be February 27. Classes are going to start May 2nd. 10 classes, 7 locations: Nassau, Suffolk, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Rockland, Manhattan, wherever you are, there's a class, 2 classes per there's going to be obviously 10 classes per week at those 7 locations, but 2 separate videos on each, 2 separate video classes on each lesson, plus the booklets, all that stuff. Really no reason to not study. I think you're out of your mind. If you want to be a cop, if you are a cop and you're not studying, you're out of your mind. Take advantage. This is 100% the last week. $150 off. Use our code Finest Unfiltered 699 at checkout. You get $150 off the course. Do it again. Last time, if you're currently on the sergeant's list and you're over 2,700 names on that list, right now, the department's averaging hiring about 60 sergeants per month. That means you have 14 months left. So that's only another 840 names, meaning that if you're over 2,700, more than likely you will not be a sergeant unless you study for this test. Time to sign up for the key, study again, and score a lot higher this time.
Yeah, and if you're about to be promoted, you should be taking this anyway, just to prepare yourself when it's time to take the lieutenant's exam. Get yourself. I'm sure. As we said before, the lieutenant's exam. There's only a little bit separate procedures as a lieutenant. Pretty much when you study for lieutenant, it's almost as if you're studying for sergeant again. Just some additional procedures. That's it. So you can't lose. Jump in the game now. You always be prepared. Better to be over prepared than not prepared at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not much to be said there.
All right, Marlon, anything before we run?
No. Where did I put a star on it? There's a comment in here about we like to dox. We don't want to debate, right? You know what's ironic about this, right? First of all, we think Nin is actually Eric Sanders, right? Well, what's ironic about this is we weren't the ones who doxed Juju, okay? Right? You doxed Juju in the lawsuit, okay? Right? So what are we talking about here? Okay. So again, guys, you're here because of a measured response to all these incidents, okay? And you're not here for agenda, okay? But regardless, let's end on a positive note. Have a great weekend. Have a great week, guys. If you're out there on patrol, stay alert and stay safe. And it's getting to the summertime, and you know what happens in the summertime. So pay attention.
Yeah, listen, thank you so much. Like, share, subscribe. 3 hours, 17 minutes into it. Have healthy opposition, have healthy debates. If you can't have a healthy debate, you have to question your own ego and insecurities. Don't forget, tomorrow, 10-4 Tavern. Show is awesome as always, and Wednesday we'll be back. And then Wednesday night, your executive perspective. So the shows continue. Thank you so much. Again, this is the real mission here is to give out the truth. If that's an agenda, sure, that's our agenda, to be authentic and to give the truth. Thank you to everyone who's watching, who's listening, our friends and listeners. We appreciate you. Our trolls in opposition, we appreciate you too. Thanks for sitting in for 3 hours and 18 minutes. So with that being said, we'll see you Wednesday as always. Finest Unfiltered, everybody. John, close out, brother.
That's it, people. We'll see you on Tuesday. Check out 10-4 Tavern tomorrow. Tomorrow, 7:05 p.m.
You sure?
All right, people. Thanks for sitting with us today. Appreciate you guys.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?